Chapter 144. Chang'an County, Leaping Horse Plain, was the border between the Falling Star Country and the East Fu Country. The Leaping Horse Plain, which stretched for hundreds of miles, was flat. It was supposed to be a land for farming, but because it was between the two countries, it was barren and overgrown with weeds. Today, there were many experts from the Falling Star Country and the East Fu Country gathered on the Leaping Horse Plain. Most of them were martial saints, and there were even sect elders of the immortal realm. Obviously, something big was going to happen. It was impossible for the East Fu Country sect master to ask the Falling Star sect to hand over Zishan Ho, so he sent the Invincible Marquis to challenge Zishan Ho. The Invincible Marquis was an extraordinary marquis in the East Fu Country. He was known as the first Marquis of the East Fu Country. Otherwise, how could he be called invincible? Only advanced martial saints could be called Marquis. Invincible among marquises was basically the strongest among martial saints. They were powerful figures who dominated among peak martial saints. Although Zishan Ho was a peak martial sage, his legs were crippled. It was already surprising that he could kill Du Bianzhan, an 8-star martial sage. The East Fu nation had sent out an invincible marquis, who was one of the strongest peak martial sages. Naturally, they had made a foolproof plan. Even if the Falling Star Country did not hand over Zishan Ho, the East Fu Country's sect master would not let him go. He would kill Zishan Ho according to Zishan Ho's suggestion. Zishan Ho himself had said that he would challenge any martial saint of the East Fu Country. If the invincible marquis of the East Fu Country came out, Zishan Ho would have to accept. On the Leaping Horse Plain, the experts on both sides stood dozens of miles apart. The area between them was where Zishan Ho and the invincible marquis were going to fight. Both of them had arrived and walked out from their respective camps. The invincible marquis of the East Fu Country was 7 or 8 years younger than Zishan Ho. He was in his prime. The title of invincible marquis was not permanent. It could only be given when one was at the peak of their prime. If the invincible marquis was old, he would be given another title, and the invincible marquis would be given to the strongest martial saint. In this way, the invincible marquis was the first marquis of the East Fu Country, the strongest martial saint. Zishan Ho's marquis was much weaker than the invincible marquis. Dense celestial essence condensed into a pair of wings behind the invincible marquis, which gave him the ability to fly for a short time. With a single glide, he could glide for hundreds of meters. After a few leaps, the invincible marquis had already reached the center of the field. He extended his right hand, and a 9-foot-long spear appeared in his hand. It was shining with a precious light, and was no ordinary weapon. With the spear in hand, the invincible marquis's aura became even sharper. His essence energy surged into the sky like billowing smoke, scattering the clouds in the sky. Zishan Ho's forward speed was much slower than Marquis Invincible's. Marquis Invincible had already reached the center, while Zishan Ho had only walked a few hundred meters. When Marquis Invincible took out his treasured spear, Zishan Ho waved his hand, and a great bow appeared. This bow shone with precious light, not the slightest bit inferior to the treasured spear in the hands of the invincible marquis. It was also not an ordinary weapon, but a spirit weapon of a very high grade. With the spirit weapon bow in his hand, Zishan Ho's aura instantly changed. Similarly, his essence surged like smoke signals, shooting straight into the sky and causing the weather to change. Even the surrounding wind was affected by Zishan Ho, becoming sharp and whistling, as if it was cutting through the void, becoming extremely terrifying. In the next moment, Zishan Ho raised his right hand, and a shining arrow appeared in his hand. He knocked the arrow on the bow. At this moment, Zishan Ho's aura was even sharper than before. Marquis Invincible immediately felt a terrifying sense of danger, and his heart tightened. This was the sign of death. At this moment, the distance between the two was still about 5 li. For a martial saint, this was a very far distance, but for a martial saint archer, this was already within the range of their shooting range. Therefore, Xiaofan stopped. The distance was too far, and Marquis Invincible had enough time to dodge the arrow. It was too difficult to kill him with one arrow, but within 5 li, one arrow was enough to kill Marquis Invincible. When Xiaofan took out his bow and arrow and pointed it at Marquis Invincible, outsiders could not feel how terrifying Xiaofan was, but Marquis Invincible instantly felt it. If he allowed Xiaofan to shoot this arrow, his life would be in danger. However, Marquis Invincible did not retreat. Instead, he roared loudly, his voice shaking the 9 heavens. The spirit weapon in his hand shone brightly, and the celestial essence wings on his back shone brightly. Whoosh! With a flap of the celestial essence wings, Marquis Invincible's speed was like a sharp blade, and in the blink of an eye, he rushed forward for more than a li. He wanted to close the distance so that Xiaofan's arrow would not be a threat, and then kill Xiaofan. However, at this moment, Xiaofan had already shot the arrow on the bow. Roar! The arrow shot out, but there was no sound of breaking through the air. Instead, it was accompanied by a tiger's roar, like a stream of light, shooting in front of Marquis Invincible. In the eyes of outsiders, the arrow was like a stream of light, accompanied by a tiger's roar, but in Marquis Invincible's eyes, there was no arrow, but a white tiger condensed from starlight, roaring and rushing over. The fear of death in Marquis Invincible's heart intensified. However, as a martial saint, he naturally would not be frightened by the fear in his heart. Instead, he glared and shouted, "Kill!" The light of the treasure spear exploded, and the spear stabbed out with endless terrifying power, stabbing at the rushing white tiger. Clang! The tip of the arrow and the spear collided in an instant. Sparks flew. In Marquis Invincible's eyes, the starlight white tiger's power did not diminish. Its bloody mouth was roaring, and its terrifying tiger claws were waving, and endless power was transmitted from the spear. Whoosh! Marquis Invincible suffered a heavy blow, and his body could not stop retreating. The brilliance of the spirit weapon spear rapidly dimmed. In the blink of an eye, the spirit weapon spear was slapped aside by the starlight white tiger, and the starlight white tiger continued to roar forward, drowning Marquis Invincible in an instant. In the blink of an eye. The experts of the 2 countries watching the battle from afar only saw Marquis Invincible's treasure spear being knocked away by an arrow, and then, the arrow did not diminish, and it pierced through Marquis Invincible's throat. Blood spurted out from Marquis Invincible's throat, and he staggered back with the treasure spear in his hand. In the end, Marquis Invincible stamped his treasure spear on the ground, stabilizing his body. But there was only so much he could do. After stabilizing himself, Marquis Invincible held the spear in his right hand, and stood with his legs apart. His body was ramrod straight, but his shocking aura instantly dissipated, and the color of life in his eyes rapidly faded. He was already dead. As the first Marquis of Dongfu, he was also an outstanding talent of his generation. But he was shot to death by an arrow before he could even get close to Marquis Xiaofan's body. His heart was filled with unwillingness. Even if he died, he would not fall to the ground. Even after death, he would still be indomitable, and could not be considered to have tarnished his reputation. Time passed slowly. Almost a month had passed since Yixing fell into a coma. His injuries had long recovered, and the 8th star ring in his dantian was already shining brightly. This indicated that Yixing's cultivation had already reached the late stage of the 8th level. On this day, the dark vortex that trapped his consciousness finally disappeared, and Yixing woke up. He opened his eyes, and the scene that entered his eyes made him extremely surprised. He sat up from the bed with a shudder. Where was this place? The environment in front of him was extremely unfamiliar. It was a place that he had never been to before. In just a moment, Yixing reacted to everything that had happened before he fell into a coma. Wan Xingliang was dead. Yang Yun was dead. Lu Chen was also dead. This caused his heart to ache, and a terrifying light burst out from his eyes. His thoughts continued. He had suffered a fatal injury, and Wei Qingxian had carried him to escape, while the martial saints of Dongfu country were chasing after them. How was Wei Qingxian? Yi Xing's heart instantly tightened. He seemed to have a vague impression that Wei Qingxian was vomiting blood, and the warm blood was spat on his face. This caused Yi Xing's heart to ache, and tears faintly flashed in his eyes. His murderous intent was terrifying. There had never been a moment where his hatred towards Dongfu country was so intense. An obsession appeared in his heart. In this life, he must destroy Dongfu country. Only then would he be able to live up to the deaths of his 3 comrades, Wan Xingliang, Yang Yun, and Lu Chen. Even though he was in a half-conscious state after being heavily injured, his powerful super brain still had some intermittent memories. Wei Qingxian was not caught by the martial saints of Dongfu country. In the end, Zishan Ho arrived and fed him a pill. Then, he completely forgot about what happened after. Remembering Zishan Ho, Yi Xing's tense heart finally calmed down. Since Zishan Ho had arrived, then Wei Qingxian should not be in danger. However, those 3 comrades of his would never come back again. Young Master Yi, you're awake? After Wei Qingxian left, someone had been taking care of Yi Xing, waiting for him to wake up. Now that Yi Xing had woken up, a beautiful servant girl of about 20 years old immediately ran over. This is... Yi Xing collected his thoughts and asked. This is Zishan Ho's residence. The Marquis ordered that when young Master Yi wakes up, immediately inform him. Young Master Yi, rest here first, I will immediately report to the Marquis. After saying that, the servant hurriedly ran out. This was Zishan Ho's residence, which meant that Master had saved him and he was completely safe. However, he did not know how the battle in Dongshan City was going. Yi Xing got down from the bed and suddenly stopped moving, his expression surprised. He remembered that his injuries were extremely serious, almost to the point of death. However, he seemed to be completely fine now, without a single injury. Furthermore, the super brain scanned his body, and the 8-star rings in his dantian made Yi Xing even more surprised. His cultivation had actually broken through to the 8th stage of the martial path, becoming a martial master. Moreover, it was the late stage of the 8th stage. This is too inconceivable. I suffered such heavy injuries, but I'm completely fine. Instead, my cultivation increased by so much. How long was I unconscious for? Yi Xing looked at each other, unable to understand. Suddenly, Yi Xing's eyes lit up. He recalled that when he was unconscious, he seemed to have fallen into a dark whirlpool. That dark whirlpool was constantly absorbing energy from all around to nourish him. Yi Xing immediately understood. His injuries had healed and his cultivation had increased greatly. It was very likely that it was related to that dark whirlpool. What was that dark whirlpool? Yi Xing had no idea, but he had a vague feeling that it might be related to his astrology. Just as Yi Xing was thinking, Zishan Ho entered the room. Thank gods for 527 red votes, becoming the 5th leader of the Archer God. Thank you. Today's monthly votes are very low. Brothers, please work harder. Today's explosion will continue. Chapter 145. Master. Seeing Zishan Ho, Yi Xing immediately went to greet him. You're finally awake. Zishan Ho smiled, his face filled with joy. He was in a very good mood. Yi Xing's injuries had clearly healed, but he had remained unconscious. This was something that Zishan Ho had been worried about. Now that Yi Xing had finally woken up, the worry in his heart was naturally relieved. Master, how long have I been unconscious for? Yi Xing asked. 27 days. Your injuries should have healed long ago, but you still haven't woken up. If you still haven't woken up, Master would have suspected that you would never wake up again. Zishan Ho patted Yi Xing's head and had Yi Xing sit down on a nearby chair. 27 days. Yi Xing was shocked. He obviously did not expect that he had been unconscious for so long. My consciousness should have woken up long ago, but I was trapped in a dark vortex. Master, I felt that the dark vortex was absorbing the surrounding energy to nourish me. This should be related to my cultivation. What's going on? Zishan Ho sat down and gestured to Yixing. After Yixing also sat down, he said, the path of martial arts is broad and profound. Among them, astrology is the most complex. What I know, compared to the entire path of martial arts, is only a hair from 9 oxen. I don't understand your situation, but Master guesses that it should be related to your astrology. Yixing also guessed that it was related to his astrology. Zishan Ho's answer clearly did not resolve his doubts. Yixing's thoughts quickly shifted away from himself. He asked, Master, why was I sent to Zishan Ho's residence? How is the battle in Dongshan City? What about Qingxian? How is she? Zishan Ho smiled faintly. The battle in Dongshan City ended the day you were unconscious. The Dongfu nation broke the rules and dared to send out a martial saint. Master naturally could only retaliate. Don't worry, I have already killed the martial saint Dong Xianing who chased after you and the mastermind behind Dong Xianing. The Dongfu nation's army of 200,000 was completely annihilated. They have already paid the price and suffered the consequences. As for Qingxian, she. Speaking of Wei Qingxian, Zishan Ho's tone clearly changed. Yixing's reaction was extremely sharp, and he naturally noticed the change in Zishan Ho's tone. He thought that something had happened to Wei Qingxian, and immediately asked in shock, what happened to Qingxian? If Wei Qingxian was only a faint mark in Yixing's heart before, then ever since she never abandoned him and risked her life to escape with Yixing, her position in Yixing's heart was no longer as simple as a faint mark. Instead, he left behind an unforgettable mark, a mark that could never be forgotten. From that moment on, Wei Qingxian had truly entered Yixing's heart. Zishan Ho said, you don't need to worry, Qingxian is fine. However, she has already been accepted as a disciple by the Spirit Moon sect's Taoist master Yan Yu and is heading towards the Spirit Moon sect. You won't be able to see her for a while. Spirit Moon sect? Master Yan Yu? The sudden appearance of this unfamiliar term made Yixing surprised. What kind of place is the Spirit Moon sect? Who is Master Yan Yu? You came from a small place like Qingye village, so you don't know much about martial arts. It's time for you to know more. Zishan Ho said, the Spirit Moon sect is the same as the Falling Star sect and the Dongfu sect. It is a sect that controls the Spirit Moon country. In the vicinity of the Falling Star country, including the Falling Star country, there are a total of 6 countries that are controlled by the 6 great sections. They are the Flying Cloud sect, the Spirit Moon sect, the Dongfu sect, the Blood Ghost sect, and the Wind sect. 6 great sects, 6 countries. Yixing now felt like a frog in a well that had suddenly jumped out of the well one day, only to discover, wow! The world was actually so big. However, Yixing was only surprised for a moment before returning to normal. He was not that country bumpkin Yixing, but the transmigrator Yixing. He was very clear that the earth was round. Besides land, there were oceans and an even wider sky. The world that Yixing had come into contact with before was only within the Falling Star country. Later on, there was the Dongfu country. Now, he knew about the Flying Cloud country, the Spirit Moon country, the Blood Ghost country, the Wind God country, and other countries. After the shock, his mind opened up. Yixing said, besides these 6 great sects, there should be other sects, right? Zishan Ho nodded with a smile. You are quite open-minded. That's right, not only are there more, but there are also many, countless sections. The entire star continent is boundless, no one knows how big it is, and no one knows how many sects there are. Zishan Ho's tone was somewhat melancholy. When talking about the vastness of the world, even a martial saint would feel insignificant, like a speck of dust. Without waiting for Yixing to continue asking, Zishan Ho continued, as a martial artist's strength increases, he will be able to come into contact with a wider world. Martial artists below the martial saint realm, even if they are martial masters of the 9th level, can only survive within the boundaries of their country. If they leave their country and go to another country, it will be very dangerous. There is almost no survival ability. If you become a martial sage, your ability to survive will be stronger. You will be able to travel to a wider world. Basically, you will be able to survive in a region. The 6 major sects that I mentioned just now are only a small region. Strictly speaking, there are a total of 10 major sects and 10 countries in the entire Qingyun region. The 10 countries are all around the Green Cloud Mountain Range. 6 countries, including the Fallen Star country, are located in the south of the Green Cloud Mountain Range. The other 4 countries, including the Azure Thunder country, the Sun Moon country, the Tian Luo country, and the Xianming country, are located in the north of the Green Cloud Mountain Range. The 6 countries in the south are all small countries, while the 4 countries in the north are all big countries. The sects that control the 4 big countries are one level higher than the Fallen Star sect and the Dongfu sect. The 6 sects in the south are all inferior 1-star sections. There are only beginner true masters in the sections. The 4 sects in the north are intermediate 1-star sections. There are intermediate true masters in the sections. If they are superior 1-star sects, then they are even stronger. There are advanced true masters in the sects. Just like how advanced martial saints can be given the title of Marquis, advanced true masters also have the title of Sage. The countries controlled by superior 1-star sects are also called upper countries. There are no upper countries in the Green Cloud region. However, there are 9 upper countries in the entire True Xian region. If you want to survive in an entire region, only a perfected person can do it. If a martial saint leaves the region they live in, without the protection of a sect, it's like an ordinary cultivator leaving his country. It's basically a situation where there's only a slim chance of survival. It's very difficult to survive. Only after becoming a true master can you be considered to have a higher ability to protect yourself. Although there are risks in leaving the region you live in, the risks are much lower than when a martial artist or martial saint leaves the region you live in. You can almost travel the world and be considered as an expert. Zi Shanho's long speech was an eye-opener for Yixing. Even though he was a transmigrator, he couldn't help but be amazed. This world sounded much bigger than Earth. The Falling Star country had a circumference of more than 10,000 miles. There wasn't a country as big as this on Earth. It was almost as big as Asia. However, this was only the smallest country in the Star continent. Just in the south of the Green Cloud Mountain Range, there were 6 countries like the Falling Star country. And in the north of the Green Cloud Mountain Range, there were 4 big countries, the Azure Thunder country, the Sun Moon country, the Great Luo country, and the Xianming country. As for the Green Cloud Mountain Range, how could its territory be small if it was surrounded by 10 countries with such vast territories? Green Leaf Town was adjacent to the Green Cloud Mountain Range, and so was Azure Sky City. No wonder the local martial artists said that the Green Cloud Mountain Range was boundless. Even martial masters didn't know how big the Green Cloud Mountain Range was. It turned out that the Green Cloud Mountain Range was much bigger than Yixing imagined. Although he had been to the Green Cloud Mountain Range several times, he once thought that he had gone deep into the Green Cloud Mountain Range. But now, it seemed that the places he had been to weren't even 1/10,000th of the Green Cloud Mountain Range. The Falling Star country was one of the 6 countries in the south of the Green Cloud Mountain Range. In the entire Green Cloud region, there were a total of 10 countries, 4 big countries and 6 small countries. And the Green Cloud region was only one of the regions of the True Xian domain. The entire True Xian domain was definitely much bigger than the Green Cloud region. In the True Xian domain, there were even 9 great countries. Yixing understood these geographical issues after hearing it once. However, he still didn't understand what martial saint and true master were. He only heard one point. True masters were stronger than martial saints. It was like the difference between martial saints and ordinary martial artists. Yixing asked, "Master, what is a true master?" According to Master, only true masters have the qualifications to travel the world. Could it be that there are martial artists stronger than true masters? Zishan Ho nodded. According to what Master has heard, there are a total of 5 martial realms: Star Tempering Realm, Star Vortex Realm, Star Dipper Realm, Astral Reaching Realm, and Star Sea Realm. Different realms have different names. Star Tempering Realm is ordinary martial artist, Star Vortex Realm is Star Marquis, Star Dipper Realm is True Master, Astral Reaching Realm is Venerable, and Star Sea Realm is King. The strongest martial artist Master has seen was only a true master. I have only heard of venerable masters in legends. I have heard that venerable masters have the strength to move mountains and fill seas. As for king masters, I have never heard of them. However, I presume that they are much more frightening than venerable masters. Yixing's expression froze. Previously, he had thought that martial saints were very awesome existences. Only after hearing Zishan Ho talk about true masters did he realize that true masters were even more awesome. In his opinion, true masters should be super awesome existences. However, after hearing Zishan Ho's detailed explanation, there were actually venerable masters above true masters. They were even more frightening, enough to move mountains and fill seas. However, even venerable masters were not the most awesome. There were still kings above them. Just how powerful were they? Even though Yixing was a transmigrator, at this moment, he could not help but be shocked to the point of being dumbstruck. This world was far more frightening than he had imagined. Compared to the people of Earth, venerable masters who could move mountains and fill seas were practically immortal-like existences. This world, there can't really be gods, right? Yixing thought inwardly. This thought caused his heart to beat rapidly. Zishan Ho's voice caused Yixing to wake up from his shock and reverie. Ordinary martial artists have low horizons. Even martial saints are hard to meet. Therefore, martial saints are said to be miraculous. In reality, martial saints are only a title for us ordinary countries. According to the title of martial artists, Star Vortex Realm should be Star Marquis. Crying for a monthly ticket. Chapter 146. Martial Saint. Xing Ho. Yixing made a comparison in his heart. Martial saint sounded domineering and awesome. The word saint was not simple, it represented the highest meaning. Martial saint meant that one was at the peak of martial arts. No wonder Zishan Ho said that martial saint was only a title in a normal country. Compared to enlightened masters, venerables, and kings, Star Vortex Realm was considered the beginning of martial arts. How could one be worthy of the 2 words martial saint? Those in the know were still okay, but if those experts from other countries who had seen the world knew about this, they would laugh their heads off. Zishan Ho laughed self-deprecatingly. Qingyun District, compared to the entire star continent, is only a small place. There are many places like Qingyun District in the star continent. Actually, there are also many places that call Xing Ho a martial saint. Yixing sighed. In the past, this disciple's dream was to reach the peak of martial arts and become a peerless expert like the martial saint. After seeing Master teach the 3 martial saints from Purple Sun Academy a lesson, only then did I realize that the difference in strength between martial saints was so great. Thus, I wanted to become a peerless expert like Master. Now it seems that my previous dream was too naive. Wanting to reach the peak of martial arts is easier said than done. Peak of martial arts? Zishan Ho couldn't help but feel melancholy. Martial arts have no limits. If you don't even know where the peak is, how can you reach it? Yixing laughed. The more ignorant you are, the more arrogant you are. On the contrary, the more you know, the more insignificant you feel. Zishan Ho looked at Yixing in surprise. At such a young age, your words have a profound meaning. However, young people should have the vigor of young people, don't be too mature. Young people are full of vigor, like the rising sun. Some things, just do as you please. Often, some things that seem impossible, when you really do it, you will realize that there is still a trace of possibility. Your martial heart has always been firm, don't give up halfway just because you know too much. Yi Xing nodded, that's impossible. There is a saying in my hometown, the further your heart, the further you can go. No matter how difficult it is to reach the peak of martial arts, I will never give up. I will walk down this path until I reach the peak of martial arts. I won't give up. Zishan Ho was once again surprised. Your hometown? Yi Xing's hometown was Green Leaf Village, which belonged to Azure Sky City. Wasn't that within the Purple Mountain County? Zishan Ho did not know that Zishan Prefecture had such a proverb. Yi Xing blinked. Actually, it was my father who told me. Zishan Ho didn't think too much about it. Instead, he nodded and said, you can go as far as your heart can go. Your father's words were well said. It's in line with the concept of archery. Yi Xing, archery? Zishan Ho said, correct, the path of archery is about the power of the heart. The second realm of archery is the following your heart realm. The arrows you shoot out can move according to your will. The stronger your heart, the more nimble your control, the higher your accuracy, and the greater your strength. Yi Xing's spirit was lifted. He had cultivated the revolving arrow technique to perfection. He could distort the trajectory of the arrows he shot out, and could even turn them around. However, to say that the arrows would move according to his will, that was absolutely impossible. Basically, once the arrow left the bowstring, its trajectory would be determined based on the strength of the moment it was shot out. No matter if it was a straight shot or a curved shot, the trajectory would be fixed the moment it left the bowstring. Even if it was fused with the wind, it would only make the arrow's speed faster and appear more erratic, making it difficult for people to determine the trajectory. In reality, the trajectory was already fixed. And the arrow moving according to one's will meant that after the arrow left the bowstring, it could still change its trajectory according to one's will. What kind of terrifying archery was this? This meant that even if others saw the trajectory of your arrow and avoided it, you could still control the arrow to change its trajectory and still hit the target. This level of archery was simply godly. Yi Xing asked himself, he hadn't even touched the surface of this level of archery. Yi Xing said in shock, Master's archery has reached the realm of following your will? Zishan Ho nodded and said, just barely. Yi Xing, your attainments in archery are also not low. You have already reached the first level of transformation. From tomorrow onwards, you will come to the Wuxia slope 20 li away from the city every day. I will teach you higher-level archery and eye techniques. After saying this, afraid that Yi Xing didn't know what eye techniques were, Zishan Ho paused for a moment, then explained, for an archer, there is a very important prerequisite, and that is eyesight. Although the higher the cultivation, the stronger the eyesight. However, the increase in eyesight brought about by a normal increase in cultivation does not meet the requirements of an excellent archer. If you can't see far enough, and your eyesight exceeds a certain distance, it will become blurry. If you don't even know where your target is, how can you hit it? Even if you have reached the realm of following your will, without a strong eyesight, you will not be an excellent archer. Eye techniques are martial arts that strengthen one's eyesight. There are both auxiliary and offensive types. The eye technique I am going to teach you is called Azure Cloud Eyes. It is a type of eye technique that combines both attack and support. It is a martial art that Master obtained from the Azure Cloud ancient land. It is a top secret. You must remember, after practicing it, do not show it to others. Do not use it unless you need to kill someone. Yi Xing nodded, yes, Master. Zishan Ho stood up and said, the matter of you being my disciple, you and I know. Do not expose it in front of outsiders. Go to the Wuxia slope every day, do not be followed. Go back to the academy and wait for me at the Wuxia slope every morning. There is only a month's time before the Falling Star sect will recruit new disciples. I can only teach you for a month, how much you can learn will depend on your own comprehension. Yixing left the Zishan residence. He felt a pair of sharp eyes watching him from afar. It was Wang Feng. Yixing glanced back and saw him. Yixing felt that Wang Feng's gaze was not friendly. This made Yixing feel a little strange. He did not know what he had done to make Wang Feng unhappy. Could it be because of Vice Principal Wang? Wang Feng was Vice Principal Wang's nephew. Yixing thought for a long time and could only think of this reason. Yixing did not know that Wang Feng had always been drooling over Wei Qingxian. However, Wei Qingxian had never looked him in the eye. Wang Feng did not go to the eastern mountain city to participate in the battle. After hundreds of years, the Wang clan finally had a genius descendant with the martial saint Tian Ming. This was a future martial saint. He would never agree to let Wang Feng go to the battlefield. Without going to the battlefield, Wang Feng naturally did not know of the friendship between Yixing and Wei Qingxian. However, after Yixing was seriously injured and was moved to the Zishan Academy, Wang Feng knew that Wei Qingxian had always been taking care of Yixing. Everyone in the Zishan residence knew that Wei Qingxian had feelings for Yixing. This naturally made Wang Feng extremely jealous. Even though Wei Qingxian had suddenly disappeared one day, and no one knew where she went, Wang Feng's jealousy of Yixing did not decrease at all. In particular, Zishan also took great care of Yixing. Not only did he move Yixing to the most luxurious guest room in the Zishan residence, he also gave Yixing the best treatment and forbade anyone to disturb him. Wang Feng was no exception. This made Wang Feng feel dissatisfied. Of course, if he did not feel jealous of Yixing because of Wei Qingxian, Yixing being treated well by Zishan as a wounded soldier who had gained a lot of merit on the battlefield was a very normal thing, and Wang Feng would not feel bad because of this. However, once there was jealousy in one's heart, any small factor was enough to make a person inexplicably resentful. Yixing did not mind Wang Feng's unfriendliness, and instead returned a kind smile. Wang Feng was Zishan disciple and adopted son, so he could be considered Yixing's senior brother. Although he did not know why Wang Feng seemed to dislike him, Yixing did not want to have any conflicts with him. It was not that Wang Feng made Yixing look at him differently, but that he was giving face to his master, Zishan. Senior brother Yi, you've finally recovered. Senior brother Yi, you're the most famous person in the Zishan Academy. Everyone in the Zishan prefecture knows about you. In one battle, you killed so many high-ranking generals of the Dongfu nation and received the rank 2 10,000 Men Commander Honor Medal. When Yixing returned to room 175, Wu Yuan and Ma Bo both excitedly congratulated him. Rank 2 10,000 Men Commander Honor Medal? Yixing was surprised and immediately took out his honor medal. As expected, the rank 7 Chili Arch Honor Medal was gone and replaced with the rank 2 10,000 Men Commander Honor Medal. It could be seen that while he was unconscious, his battle achievements had been recalculated and his honor medal had been replaced. The 10,000 Men Commander Honor Medal was not easy to obtain. One had to kill at least 5 enemy 10,000 men commanders to obtain it. Even a rank 9 Martial Master would have a hard time obtaining it. Yixing was only a rank 7 Martial Master at the time, and he was only 16 years old. Moreover, he received the rank 2 10,000 Men Commander Honor Medal, so it was very sensational. Yixing took out 2 silver star fruits and gave one to each of them. He said, Eastern Mountain City was defended by everyone's concerted efforts. I couldn't have done it alone. You guys have contributed a lot as well. Your cultivation should be more or less consolidated now. These 2 silver star fruits are for you. I wish you all the best in becoming martial Dao masters soon. When Yixing went to the battlefield to gain experience, Wu Yuan and Ma Bo, as his followers, naturally did not fall behind. The two of them were very strong among rank 6 martial artists, so they were not targeted by the enemy's generals. During the battle, they also killed many Dongfu army soldiers. Wu Yuan and Ma Bo did not expect Yixing to give them the silver star fruits, so they were very grateful. Yixing originally did not intend to give them the silver star fruits. The silver star fruits were not ordinary things, but the two of them killed many Dong Fu army soldiers, which Yixing appreciated. Anyway, he still had a few silver star fruits on him, so he gave 2 to them. As for the remaining 3 silver star fruits, he gave 1 to Yi Yunlong, 1 to Yi Yundai, and 1 to Yi Yunlong to bring back to the Ye family in Tianzang City. He wanted to see which junior in the Ye family could cultivate to peak rank 6 martial Dao master first and give it to that person. This way, the Ye family would have another martial Dao master. After giving the 3 silver star fruits to Yi Yunlong and Yi Yundai, Yixing headed to the library. He received an order from the academy that the library's 4th floor was open to him for an indefinite period of time. 3 chapters have been updated. 360 degrees rotation, requesting monthly votes. Chapter 147. On the 4th floor of the library, there were not many top-grade martial arts, only a dozen or so. Not many of these top-grade martial arts had explanations. When Yixing reached the 4th floor of the library, he naturally learned all of them. After the experience in Eastern Mountain City, Yixing had mastered all the martial arts in the super brain. His level of martial arts knowledge was better than that of a 9th stage grandmaster. Even if there were no explanations, Yixing could learn these top-grade martial arts by himself. The first thing to change was naturally the cultivation technique. Yixing's Qingyuan art had been cultivated to the 6th level, and the internal strength in his body was very strong. However, he had seen the star essence of half-step martial saints and martial saints. He knew that his internal strength was nothing compared to a real powerhouse. Therefore, even if the super brain had improved the Qingyuan art into a top-grade cultivation technique, Yixing still cultivated the origin restoration force, which was also a top-grade cultivation technique. The origin restoration force combined combat and cultivation, and its internal strength was very strong. Moreover, through the improvement of the super brain, Yixing's origin restoration force strengthened his internal strength more than the normal origin restoration force. The normal origin restoration force had a total of 6 levels, and one had to open 18 meridians to cultivate. After the super brain's improvement, the origin restoration force had a total of 7 levels, and one had to open 24 meridians to cultivate. Although it was not at the level of a spirit-level martial art and still belonged to the category of ordinary martial arts, it had almost reached the limit of ordinary martial arts. After coming out of the library, Yixing began to convert his internal strength. It was not until late at night that the conversion was completed. The origin restoration force from the 6th level of the Qingyuan art was only at the 4th level. However, the origin restoration force improved by the super brain had a total of 7 levels, and there was still a lot of room for improvement. The next day, Yixing had arrived at the Wangqing slope before 7:00 in the morning. Zi Shanho arrived at the Wangqing slope on time. Yixing greeted him, "Master." Zi Shanho nodded, "You have already gone to the 4th floor of the library. Which martial art did you choose?" Zi Shanho obviously did not know that Yixing had already memorized all the martial arts on the 4th floor. Yixing said, "Origin Restoration Force." Zi Shanho said, "The biggest shortcoming of a star-tempering realm martial artist is their inner strength, and an archer's own strength is crucial. Returning essence force strengthens one's inner strength, which is the best cultivation method for you. However, the star-tempering realm is the foundation of martial arts, and building a good foundation is the most important. No matter how strong one's inner strength is, it can't be stronger than celestial essence, and the strength of celestial essence has nothing to do with the strength of one's inner strength. However, the foundation of the martial way can affect your entire life's martial way. If you don't refine the bones in your body, your foundation won't be stable, and you won't be able to condense a star spiral and become a martial saint. The top-grade body refining technique, Invincible Golden Body, not only strengthens your flesh and blood, it can also refine the bones in your body. Before you can condense a star spiral, you must at least cultivate the Invincible Golden Body to the Dashang level. These top-grade herbs are enough for you to cultivate. While speaking, Zi Shanho waved his hand, and more than 10 different kinds of top-grade herbs were stuffed into Yixing's hands. Every top-grade herb was very precious, and it was impossible to come across them unless one was in the depths of the Green Cloud Mountain Range. Even a 9th-level martial master might not be able to find them. Purple Mountain County City only sold top-grade herbs at most, and it was impossible for top-grade herbs to appear. From this, it could be seen how precious the top-grade herbs Zi Shanho took out were. Of course, they were precious to a star-tempering realm martial artist, and were nothing to a martial saint. However, it was easy to cultivate the invincible golden body to the Desheng level, but it was difficult to cultivate it to the Desheng level. Even if Zi Shanho gave him twice as many top-grade herbs, it still wouldn't be enough. Although peak-grade medicinal herbs were not considered precious items for martial saints, it was not easy to obtain large amounts of them. Zi Shanho had spent a lot of effort to obtain these peak-grade medicinal herbs. There were too many people who wanted to cultivate top-grade body refining techniques, and top-grade herbs were in short supply. As soon as they appeared on the market, they would be bought immediately. Yixing's top-grade body refining technique, the silver body technique, had already reached the Desheng level, and he was very clear about the benefits of having a strong physical body. Even if Zi Shanho didn't say anything, he would also cultivate the golden body technique, and think of a way to cultivate it to the Desheng level before advancing towards the martial saint realm. Many thanks, Master. Yixing put all the top-grade herbs into his storage ring. Zi Shanho sat on the ground and motioned for Yixing to sit as well. Today, Master will teach you the Eye of Azure Cloud. First, I will tell you the origin of the Eye of Azure Cloud. After Yixing sat down, Zi Shanho continued, many years ago, the entire Azure Cloud region was a unified country called the Azure Cloud Country, which was controlled by the Azure Cloud sect. At that time, most of the top 10 sects in the Azure Cloud region didn't exist. Only the Tian Luo sect and the Xian Ming sect had witnessed the existence of the Azure Cloud Country. At that time, the Tian Luo sect and the Xian Ming sect didn't exist, and these two sects were only vassal sects in the territory of the Azure Cloud Country. The Eye of Azure Cloud is the secret of the Azure Cloud sect, and is a top-grade spiritual martial art. Yixing said, spiritual martial art, is it a higher-level martial art than top-grade martial arts? Zi Shanho nodded, yes. The martial arts that can be cultivated in the star-tempering realm are all ordinary martial arts, called mortal martial arts. Only those who have condensed star essence can cultivate spiritual martial arts. Spiritual martial arts are also divided into 4 grades, low, middle, high, and top grade. Martial saints and enlightened masters can cultivate them. Above spiritual martial arts, I heard that there are even more advanced profound martial arts. It is said that venerables and kings all cultivate profound martial arts. Yixing murmured, mortal martial arts, spirit martial arts, and profound martial arts are divided into 4 grades, low, middle, high, and top grade. There are a total of 12 grades. Zi Shanho said, not only martial arts, even medicine and weapons are divided like this. In the Qingyun area, there are only spirit-level martial arts and weapons. An upper-class spirit martial art is enough to be treated as a sect treasure by the major sections. An ultimate-class spirit martial art is something that no sect has. Yixing looked surprised, Master, then wouldn't the Eye of Azure Cloud be easily peeped as a top-grade spiritual martial art? Yes. Zi Shanho nodded, therefore, it cannot be leaked. Yixing nodded with a serious face. He already knew the severity of the matter. Zi Shanho said, the Eye of Azure Cloud is divided into 2 parts, the Eye of Azure Cloud and the Eye of Cloud. In fact, I only obtained the upper part from the Azure Cloud ancient land. Only the cultivation method of the Eye of Azure Cloud is equivalent to a middle-grade spiritual martial art. However, even so, it cannot be leaked. If the enlightened masters of the other sects know that you have the Eye of Azure Cloud, how would they believe that you don't know the Eye of Cloud? I'm afraid they would have to peel your head open to see if they believe it. Yixing asked, Master, you have mentioned the Azure Cloud ancient land many times, what is that place? Shanho said, the Azure Cloud ancient land is the origin of the Azure Cloud sect. It is a secret space. When the Azure Cloud sect was still around, it was the training ground of the Azure Cloud sect. Outsiders were not allowed to enter. Later on, the Azure Cloud sect was destroyed and the entire sect was destroyed. Only the Azure Cloud ancient land remained. Yixing said in surprise, I heard Master say that the Azure Cloud sect is in existence similar to the 9 great sects. How could it be destroyed? Shanho said seriously, there is no sect in the world that can exist forever. My Falling Star sect has only been established for 700 years. In the entire Azure Cloud region, there are only 5 sects that have been around for more than 1,000 years. There are only 2 that have been around for more than 1,500 years. The Azure Cloud sect was destroyed 1,500 years ago. Enlightened masters only have a lifespan of 200 years. After 1,500 years, things have changed. Who knows how the Azure Cloud sect was destroyed, but regarding the destruction of the Azure Cloud sect, there are a few legends. One of them is that the young master of the Azure Cloud sect was wandering outside and killed the son of an honored master. That honored master came to the Azure Cloud region and destroyed the Azure Cloud sect. Another legend is that the Azure Cloud sect obtained a profound level treasure. I don't know if it was a black tortoise, a profound weapon, or a profound medicine. The news was heard by an honored master. The honored master destroyed the Azure Cloud sect and took away the treasure. There are many versions of these 2 legends, each with their own differences. For example, some say that the young master of the Azure Cloud sect was wandering outside and caused trouble. Some say that it was the son of an elder of the Azure Cloud sect. Some say that it was the elder of the Azure Cloud sect. In short, it was all caused by trouble outside, leading to the destruction of the Azure Cloud sect. As for the version of the Azure Cloud sect obtaining the treasure, there are also various, but in the end, it was all because of the treasure that the sect was destroyed. It's just that the treasures were different. However, in addition to these 2 versions of the legend, there is a third legend. It is very different from the first 2 legends. It can even be said that it is unrelated. Yixing's eyes lit up and said, there is a third legend? Shanho nodded, yes, the third legend is that the Azure Cloud sect did not kill people and cause trouble. Second, they did not suffer because of the treasure. Yixing was surprised when he heard this. First, it was not an enemy. Second, it was not the crime of possessing a treasure. Then what else could cause the destruction of the Azure Cloud sect, a sect controlled by a superior country? Shanho continued, moreover, the first 2 legends are related to the Venerable One, but the third legend has nothing to do with the Venerable One. It is said that 2 kings fought in the Blue Cloud mountain range, and as a result, the Blue Cloud sect was caught in the crossfire. The entire sect was destroyed in the battle between the 2 kings. Kings fought, caught in the crossfire? Yixing was dumbfounded. This third legend was too big of a leap. Indeed, it had nothing to do with the first 2 legends. However, the third legend was too unbelievable. For the martial artists of the Azure Cloud region, the honored master was a legend. How could there be 2 kings here? Furthermore, the Azure Cloud sect, as a 1-star upper sect, was the ruler of the upper kingdom. Yet, because of a battle between 2 outsiders, they had been caught in the crossfire and their entire sect had been destroyed. This was also hard to believe. Shanho noticed Yixing's surprised expression and chuckled, this third legend is the most absurd and unbelievable. Therefore, most people believe in the first 2 legends. However, it is precisely because the third legend is unbelievable and fits the criteria of a legend that storytellers prefer to tell the third legend. It has spread far and wide. Although people don't believe in it, they like to hear stories like this. Shanho waved his hand and stopped smiling. These are all idle chatter. Next, we will get to the main topic. I will teach you the cultivation method of the azure eyes. Listen carefully. Last night, I was busy until 1 o'clock. I happily posted a single chapter. I thought that today would be a big explosion of happiness. However, when I turned on the computer, today's monthly ticket was too sad. It was like my whole person was punched in the face. There was no passion left and my whole person was muddle-headed. My eyes are full of tears. Can I still have a monthly ticket? Chapter 148. Time flew by. Every day, Yixing would come to Wangqing Slope to listen to Shanho's teachings on the green eyes. His super brain was powerful, and he had the ability to see far into the distance. His goals were astonishing, so when it came to cultivating the green eyes, it was a natural process for him, and he improved at lightning speed. Days passed, and soon, 10 days had passed. On this day, after Shanho finished teaching Yixing, he asked, "Yixing, you've been cultivating the green eyes for 10 days, have you had any results?" Yixing nodded. Shanho was surprised. Eye techniques were not like other martial arts, they were extremely difficult to cultivate. In the past, he had also taught Wang Feng the Eye of Azure Clouds, but after 3 months of teaching, there was no effect. This caused Shanho to decisively give up. Wang Feng was not cut out for learning eye techniques, much less archery. Shanho wiped away all of Wang Feng's memories of the Eye of Azure Clouds. Now, he had only taught Yixing for 10 days. Today's question was just a casual gesture, but unexpectedly, Yixing nodded, indicating that there were results. Shanho's eyes were filled with joy. How far can you see now? For example, how far can you see insects, flying ants, and other small animals? Yixing's eyesight allowed him to see things from 10 miles away. If he used his green eyes, he would be able to see even further. However, Yixing obviously couldn't include the super brain's ability to see things from afar. Otherwise, Shanho would probably be shocked by what he saw. Yixing did not use the ability to see far, but only the green eyes. Soon, his eyes were covered with a layer of green light, and it was as if the insects 3 miles away were right in front of him. Then, Yixing used the ability to see far, and his eyesight increased by several times. It was not just 10 miles, but the furthest he could see insects was 15 miles. With the superbrain's long-range vision, not only did Yixing cultivate green eyes very quickly, but he also strengthened its effects. In his normal state, he could only see up to 3 miles away, but when he used long-range vision, he could still see up to 5 miles away, even if it was 5 miles away. This had almost doubled the long-distance vision of the green eyes by 60 to 70%. The effect was heaven-defying. Yixing simply stated the distance of his vision under normal circumstances. I can see clearly up to 3 miles away, which is about 1,600 meters. For an ordinary person, being able to clearly see insects and flying ants dozens of meters away was already considered an excellent eyesight. However, martial artists, through cultivation, would improve all aspects of their bodies, and their eyesight would become better and better. An 8th-level Grandmaster's eyesight should be able to see insects and flying ants 500 to 600 meters away, which was 1,000 steps away. Yixing, on the other hand, could see 1,600 meters away, which was about 3 times the eyesight of an 8th-level Grandmaster. It was obvious that the green eyes had greatly improved his eyesight. Shanho's expression became 10 times more joyful, and he was shocked. "You are indeed a martial arts genius. In just 10 days, you have such a great effect." Yixing smiled. If he told Shanho that he could see insects and flying ants 15 miles away, he wondered how shocked Shanho would be. Of course, he could only think about it in his heart. He could not say it out loud. Shanho said, "Since your eyesight has already reached such a level, then, next, you can cultivate it simultaneously with your archery." How far have you cultivated your origin returning energy, invincible avatar, and gale arrow technique? Yixing said, origin returning force 5th level, invincible golden body nearing completion, and gale arrow technique reaching perfection. In these 10 days, although he had been learning the green cloud eyes from Zi Shanho at the Wangqing slope during the day, Yixing had not been idle during the rest of the time. He had improved in all aspects. After 10 days of cultivating the origin returning force 5th level, Yixing had improved again. In terms of inner strength quality, Yixing was comparable to a late 9th level martial grandmaster. As for the cultivation of the invincible golden body, Zi Shanho had given him more than 10 kinds of top-quality herbs, so it was natural that the speed was fast. Now, there were still a few top-quality herbs that he had not used. In another 8 to 10 days, the invincible golden body would reach perfection. A superior body refining cultivation method at the Great Completion Realm would have a very powerful physical body. It was enough to condense a star vortex and break through to the martial sage realm. With just the physical strength, it would be enough to crush most 9th-grade grandmasters. As for the gale arrow technique, Yixing had already reached perfection when he was in Dongshan City. The reason why he had not reached perfection was that he was still lacking a little bit of understanding. He needed to train himself through actual combat to break through that barrier. After that, he had enough experience through actual combat. Originally, he would have broken through to perfection very quickly. However, because he had been severely injured by Dongxianing, he had fainted. Therefore, he only understood that little bit of understanding when he woke up, and the gale arrow technique had successfully broken through to perfection. Now, Yixing's physical strength and inner strength were much stronger than before he had fainted. The gale arrow technique had also become more powerful. If he were to meet a martial saint like Lu Chuanshao again, Yixing was confident that he could fight him. The arrows he shot should be able to threaten a martial saint. However, in front of a martial saint, he was still far from enough. The origin returning force 5th level, and the gale arrow technique has reached perfection? Zi Shanho was surprised. He was not surprised at all by the cultivation of the invincible golden body. However, the origin returning force and the gale arrow technique had shocked him. There were very few 9th level martial grandmasters who had cultivated the origin returning force 5th level. Basically, only martial grandmasters who were at the later stage of the 9th level and above could cultivate to this level. However, Yixing had only cultivated the origin returning force 5th level for 10 days. As for the gale arrow technique, it was an upper-class martial technique. It was difficult to cultivate an upper-class martial technique to perfection. Moreover, archery had always been more difficult to cultivate than other martial arts. However, not only had Yixing cultivated the gale arrow technique to perfection, but he had also broken through to perfection. Although there was only one step between perfection and perfection, the difficulty was unusually high. He had blocked 99% of the martial artists. Among the 9th level martial grandmasters, there were many who had cultivated an upper-class martial technique to perfection. However, those who had cultivated an upper-class martial technique to perfection were less than 1 in 100. Zi Shanho had originally thought that he had already thought highly of Yixing. However, it seemed that he had still underestimated Yixing. Although Yixing's heavenly fate was ordinary and could even be said to be poor, in other aspects, he could already be described as monstrous. At the very least, Zi Shanho had never seen such a monstrous martial arts genius in his life. The only thing that could hinder such a person was that his cultivation could not increase. Once there was an opportunity, he could transform into a true dragon and become a supreme monstrous genius. As the saying went, a golden carp was not a fish in a pond. Once there was an opportunity, he would become a dragon. Zi Shanho was looking forward to it. He felt that the possibility of a miracle happening to Yixing was increasing. He let out a long sigh and said, "Yixing, you have really made me look at you in a new light. You are much better than I had imagined. From today onwards, I will teach you the stacking wave arrow technique. The stacking wave arrow technique is a supreme-level archery technique. However, strictly speaking, the height of the stacking wave arrow technique far surpasses that of a supreme-level martial technique. When cultivated to the extreme, you can completely compete with the spiritual martial realm. The stacking wave arrow technique of the supreme-level archery technique has a total of 9 stacks. Once cultivated to the 9th layer, it is considered perfect. However, if one's inner strength is thick enough, it can reach beyond the 9th layer. As for how many layers one can stack, it depends on the thickness of one's inner strength and the degree of control. In other words, archery skills that surpass the 9th layer will surpass the limits of a supreme-level martial technique and will be extremely powerful. Yixing listened with anticipation and said, "Master, if I am not a martial saint, but the stacking wave arrow technique reaches the 9th layer and above, can I kill a martial saint?" Xiaofan nodded. "In theory, it is possible. 10 layers of stacks is enough to threaten a martial saint who has just entered the star vortex realm. When the stacks of stacks reach a certain level, killing a martial saint is not a problem. However, even if you cultivate the origin returning force to the 6th layer and your cultivation reaches the limit of the 9th layer, the 9th layer is already the limit. It is almost impossible to surpass the 9th layer." Hearing this, Yixing was full of confidence. The strengthening effect of his origin returning force on his inner strength was higher than the normal origin returning force. Furthermore, his origin returning force was at the 7th layer. The normal origin returning force could reach the 9th layer at the 6th layer. If he cultivated the improved origin returning force to the 6th layer, there should be hope for him to surpass the 9th layer. If he cultivated it to the 7th layer, wouldn't it be possible for him to kill a martial saint? The sun and the moon alternated, day after day. Yixing cultivated intensely every day. His progress in all aspects was extremely fast. His green eyes could clearly see the distance of insects and flying ants. From 3 li to 5 li, then to 7 li, this was under normal conditions. If he used the super brain's vision, he could clearly see the distance of insects and flying ants to more than 20 li. This had already surpassed Xiaofan's eyesight. Yixing cultivated the stacking wave arrow technique and reached the 3rd layer. Then, he quickly reached the 4th layer, 5th layer, 6th layer. Half a month later, Yixing's stacking wave arrow technique had reached the 9th layer. His origin returning force had also broken through to the 6th layer. If he had more time, when he completely consolidated the 6th layer of origin returning force and was about to break through to the 7th layer, he might be able to surpass the 9th layer and reach the 10th layer. If that was the case, Yixing's stacking wave arrow technique with the 10th layer would give him the qualifications to challenge a martial saint. Without a doubt, the invincible golden body had reached the great completion stage. Yixing's only obstacle was how to cultivate the invincible golden body to the perfection stage. Perhaps, he would need to go to the depths of the Green Cloud mountain range to have a chance. However, he did not have this opportunity recently. The day of the Falling Star sect's disciple recruitment was getting closer and closer. Yixing had to become a disciple of the Falling Star sect first. According to the sect's rules, only in the sect could one receive the inheritance of the spiritual martial force. Martial saints were not allowed to privately send help, even if they were master and disciple. Unless you plan to not enter the sect for the rest of your life and become a rogue martial artist, the sect would not accept a disciple who already had the inheritance of the spiritual martial force. Most of the spiritual martial force could only be learned after becoming a martial saint. However, the inheritance was an exception. The inheritance referred to the cultivation technique. The cultivation technique was not restricted by the realm. In theory, even a normal warrior could receive the inheritance of the black tortoise. However, this was only in theory. Being able to learn it did not mean that one could master it. The following is forced. Please read. I really want to explode, I really want to write more words, I really want to update more. But, I am really tired. Not only am I tired from writing, but I am also tired mentally. Moreover, the mental exhaustion is even more serious than writing words. The archer god is still 1,300 votes away from first place in the monthly votes. With 10 or 20 votes a day, I can't see any hope of catching up. And I need a hope in my heart. This is my motivation to explode. The motivation to work hard. I want to ask, will the explosion continue? My answer is yes, I will continue. There is still a lot of time left in this month. In the future, not only will there be an explosion of 3 chapters, there will also be 4 chapters, or even more. However, I really need a little support from my brothers. I need to see a hope. Brothers. Half of the month has passed. If there is a second or third monthly votes, please vote for the archer god. Just 1 vote. Okay? Chocolate, please. Chapter 149. Without step-by-step cultivation and consolidation, without rich martial arts knowledge, not to mention the black tortoise, even the lowest level of spirit martial inheritance, ordinary martial artists would not be able to learn it. Only by cultivating the highest level of cultivation methods to the highest level could one easily learn spirit-level cultivation methods. This was also the time when the sect passed down the spirit martial inheritance. Spirit martial arts that used celestial essence as the prerequisite required one to break through to the star vortex realm and completely convert their internal strength into celestial essence. Spirit martial arts that were not related to celestial essence, such as the blue cloud eyes, could be cultivated without reaching the star vortex realm. Spirit-level cultivation methods were to cultivate celestial essence and allow one's cultivation to break through to the star vortex realm. This was also something that could be cultivated without reaching the star vortex realm. On this day, Zi Shanhou only tested the effect of Yi Xing's cultivation and said, "Today, I will tell you a story." Yi Xing's eyes flashed and suddenly became interested. Is it another legend? Zi Shanhou shook his head and motioned for Yi Xing to sit down. No, it is a true story. Yi Xing heard Zi Shanhou's tone was a bit dignified. After a short "oh," he sat cross-legged on the grass and no longer spoke, just listening to the story. Zi Shanhou sat down opposite Yi Xing. Once upon a time, there was an outer sect elder of the Falling Star sect. He was a peak martial saint. At the age of 30, he married a wife and started a family. He longed for the stars and the moon and wanted to have a child. However, after more than 10 years of marriage, his wife never gave birth to a child. This made him very upset. At the age of 42, he ran away from home and wandered the world. Yi Xing thought that Zi Shanhou was telling his own story, but after listening for a while, he felt that it was not the case. He did not ask and just listened quietly. In the past 7 years, this elder had traveled to several countries in the Qingyun region. He had been to the southern and northern parts of the Qingyun Mountains. Along the way, he had encountered dangers and suffered injuries. However, these setbacks did not make him want to return home. He just wanted to wander the world until one day. There was a twist in the story, and Yi Xing's ears perked up. Until one day, when he traveled to the Tian Luo Kingdom, a big country in the north, he found an abandoned baby girl. His wandering heart finally felt like returning home. He adopted the baby girl and brought her back to the Luoxing Kingdom. When he returned home, he was ready to raise his daughter and live a peaceful life. Coincidentally, maybe it was because he was in a good mood when he returned home this time, but in just a few months, his wife was pregnant. Yi Xing blinked his eyes. And the story, elder of course, and. At this point, Zi Shanhou's face revealed a faint smile. Yi Xing also smiled. This was indeed something to be happy about. However, Yi Xing knew that this story was not over. Zi Shanhou would not tell him a meaningless story, so he continued to listen quietly. The husband and wife raised their son and daughter. The children grew up day by day, and they also grew older day by day. Gradually, white hair appeared on their heads. However, they were always very happy because their 2 children were very capable. The son had an 8-star orange fate, and the daughter had a 9-star orange fate. From the beginning of their cultivation, they surpassed ordinary people and stood out among their peers. Since young, the two elders wanted to bring their son and daughter together. They hoped that they could live in harmony and have a happy relationship. In the future, they could become husband and wife. The two children did not disappoint the two elders. They were very close. When they were around 17 years old, they broke through the star vortex realm and became inner disciples of the falling star sect. This made the two elders very happy. Originally, everything should have developed beautifully, but Yixing's expression froze. There was another twist in the story. The smile on Zi Shanho's face had long disappeared. It was replaced by calmness as he continued to narrate. After becoming an inner disciple, the number of geniuses I came into contact with increased. Although the 8-star and 9-star orange fates were outstanding, they were not necessarily the highest. At that time, among the inner disciples, there was an enlightened Master Heaven's Fate genius named Lu Tianyuan. Enlightened Master Heaven's Fate is hard to come by in the falling star sect in dozens of years. Especially a 2-star yellow fate genius, he was the first in the falling star sect in 100 years. Moreover, Lu Tianyuan was the grandson of an inner sect elder. Naturally, he was fully nurtured by the sect. At this point, Yixing already had a premonition. As expected, Zi Shanho's following words confirmed his conjecture. After the old man's adopted daughter became an inner disciple, she fell in love with Lu Tianyuan. She herself was a 9-star orange fate genius, and in terms of talent, she was second only to Lu Tianyuan. Moreover, her appearance was second to none among the inner disciples. If Lu Tianyuan was a true dragon among the inner disciples, then she was a phoenix. No female disciple could surpass her limelight. How could Lu Tianyuan not be moved by the number one female disciple in terms of talent and appearance? The two quickly became entangled like glue. Yixing vaguely understood. The old man's son in the story was most likely Zi Shanho himself. As for the old man's adopted daughter, could she be the enemy that Zi Shanho spoke of? If she only fell in love with someone else, she shouldn't be considered an enemy. Yixing unconsciously glanced at Zi Shanho's legs. The following story should be related to his legs. Then, the person who caused his legs to be crippled should be his enemy. Only, he didn't know if it was Lu Tianyuan or the old man's adopted daughter who did it. Yixing felt a wave of disgust in his heart. At this point in the story, it had become the rhythm of two men fighting over a woman. Why was it so melodramatic and cliché? Zi Shanho's following words, however, made Yixing realize that he had guessed wrong, very wrong. Lu Tianyuan's aptitude was higher than the old man's son's, and his appearance was also better. He was a handsome and elegant gentleman. If the old man's adopted daughter only had a brotherly relationship with the old man's son, it was understandable that she fell in love with him. Although this made the old man and his son somewhat sad, they could only accept the reality. There are plenty of fish in the sea. The old man's son and adopted daughter grew up together. In fact, there were very few feelings between men and women. After the two separated, the old man's son was only sad for a short period of time, and then became more cheerful. As they grew older, the old man's adopted daughter and son became intermediate martial saints, and were promoted to core disciples. At this time, the old man's son met the true other half of his life, the core disciple of the Spirit Moon sect, Yun Xilan. The two of them fell in love with each other, and it was from Yun Xilan that the old man's son truly felt the taste of love. Seeing that the story had developed to the Spirit Moon sect, Yixing's spirits were lifted. Wei Qingxian was now in the Spirit Moon sect, and was the personal disciple of Master Yan Yu. When Zi Shanho talked about Yun Xilan, his eyes revealed a rare tenderness. However, the tenderness in his eyes soon disappeared, and was replaced by fierceness. When the Qingyun ancient land opened, the outstanding disciples of the top 10 sects in the Qingyun region could enter and gain experience there. The old man's son and Yun Xilan obtained a great opportunity in the Qingyun ancient land. Originally, they could both break through the Star Gang realm and become immortals, but Zi Shanho's tone suddenly became agitated, and his eyes flashed with hatred. He never thought that his sister would sneak attack them. Yun Xilan was killed on the spot, and his legs were cut off. He escaped with a small space-breaking spell, but the opportunity was taken away by the old man's adopted daughter. In the end, the old man's adopted daughter became immortal in the Star Gang realm. An elder of the An later became the wife of the sect leader. However, the old man's son became a cripple with both legs cut off. The two old men were already old, and they both died of anger because of this. At the end of the story, Zi Shanho was gnashing his teeth, and tears flashed in his eyes. However, many years had passed, and he was no longer the hot-blooded and impulsive young man. Although the hatred was buried deep in his heart, it was not so strong on the surface. In the end, no tears fell, and the tears in his eyes quickly disappeared. However, Yixing could feel the hatred in Zi Shanho's heart. At this point in the story, Yixing was naturally sure that the old man's son was his master, Zi Shanho. Even though Yixing was an outsider, he was still infuriated by such an outcome. Yixing said, she sneakily attacked her fellow disciples, tried to kill her brother, and angered her parents to death. She committed such crimes. Shouldn't the sect punish her? Zi Shanho's eyes twitched, and he said, after coming out of the Qingyun ancient land, she performed excellently in the 10 sects competition, and won honor for the Falling Star sect. As for me, my legs were crippled, and I didn't even have the qualifications to participate in the 10 sects competition. For a crippled person, the sect naturally valued a genius more. Moreover, she accused me of betraying the sect and giving the great opportunity to become an immortal in the immortal realm to an outsider. After she got the opportunity, she kept one for herself and gave the other to the sect, so that the sect could have one more immortal in the Star Gang realm. In addition, with Lu Tianyuan's support, all the elders in the sect stood on her side. If it weren't for Ancestor Lin, would have been executed as a traitor more than 10 years ago. When Yixing heard this, he only felt a stifling feeling in his heart. Such a slut deserved to die. Yixing asked, who is Ancestor Lin? Zi Shanho said, Ancestor Lin Xiuyuan, more than 100 years ago, the Falling Star Kingdom was occupied by the Dongfu nation. It was Ancestor Lin who reorganized the Falling Star sect and recovered the territory of the Falling Star Kingdom. She is the only 3 immortal in the Falling Star sect. Then, Yixing hesitated for a moment. What's her name? Zi Shanho naturally knew who Yixing was asking about. With a serious expression, he said word by word, Hua, Tian, Shu. Zi Shanho shook his head, no. If you have the opportunity to get a spiritual medicine to regrow limbs in the future, get one for me. I want to kill this bitch with my own hands. Yixing nodded vigorously, yes. Zi Shanho said, you don't have to come here tomorrow. It's the day of the Falling Star sect's disciple recruitment. Orange lives can directly become an outer disciple. Red lives need to go through a test. You have to get first place in the test and the reward will let your cultivation break through to the 9th rank of the martial path. Brothers, thank you for your support. In just half a day, there were more than 100 votes, which gave me hope. Thank you. Today's explosion will continue. From today's votes, the brothers still have the goods in their hands. Please continue to support, thank you. Chapter 150. The Falling Star sect's disciple recruitment was a grand event held once every 3 years. Martial Saint Heavenly Fate Realm geniuses did not need to take the test and directly became outer disciples. As for ordinary Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators, even if they were 9-star Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators, they had to go through the test. Only the elites could become outer disciples of the Falling Star sect. To the secular world, 7-star Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators were geniuses, while 8-star and 9-star Heavenly Fate Realm cultivators were geniuses among geniuses. However, to the sects, 1-star or 9-star heavenly fate realm cultivators were no different. They were all mortals with a difficult life. 7th layer Martial Master, 8th layer Martial Master, and 9th layer Martial Master were all titles for the secular world cultivators. In terms of martial Tao, they were only at the 7th, 8th, and 9th layer of the star tempering realm. They were all mortals who had not entered the sect yet. Only by gathering star rings and forming a star vortex and becoming a star marquis, or martial saint, could one be considered to have stepped into the martial Tao and become a star cultivator. If one did not become a martial saint, they were mortals, ants in the eyes of the sects. If mortals wanted to borrow the power of the sects to become a martial saint, they naturally had to go through a test. Because there were too many mortals, the resources of the sects were limited. They could only provide opportunities for a few elites. Early the next morning, Xiaofan rode the Purple Flame Eagle and Black Feather Eagle to the Purple Mountain Institute to take the top 10 from the previous assessment to the Falling Star Sect's disciple selection. The Black Feather Eagle was Watanabe Zhan's mount, the giant black eagle. Yixing learned its name from Xiaofan. Yixing remembered that he and Wei Qingxian were sent out from the depths of the Green Cloud Mountain range by a red-clothed female martial saint. The giant black eagle they rode was also a black feather eagle. There were many black feather eagles, which were equivalent to martial saints. They were the most common flying mounts of martial saints. As for Xiaofan's Purple Flame Eagle, although it was also a martial saint, it was much stronger than the black feather eagle. It was the king of the black feather eagles, equivalent to a high-rank martial saint. Wei Qingxian was not there, so naturally, someone else came up. These people were not martial saint heavenly fate realm cultivators, not even 9-star heavenly fate realm cultivators. They had to pass the test to have a chance of becoming a disciple of the Falling Star sect. As for geniuses of the martial saint heavenly mandate like Wang Feng, there was no need for him to pass the test. He had already been taken in as a disciple of the Falling Star sect several days in advance. The 10 students of the Purple Mountain Academy rode on the Purple Flame Eagle and the Black Feather Eagle respectively. Under the leadership of Xiaofan, they headed towards the Falling Star sect. The Falling Star sect was located in the Falling Star Mountains to the north of the Jinghua County. The Jinghua County was located in the center of the Luoxing Kingdom, while the Zishan County was located at the border. The distance between the two counties was about 5,000 to 6,000 miles. If one were to use a beast carriage, it would take at least 8 to 10 days to arrive. However, riding on the Purple Flame Eagle and Black Feather Eagle was extremely fast. It only took them half a day to arrive. The Falling Star Kingdom had a vast territory with a radius of more than 10,000 miles. There were a total of 105 counties, and each county had 10 places to participate in the Falling Star sect's disciple selection. There were a total of 1,050 people. However, the Falling Star sect only recruited a limited number of disciples each time. There were only 300 people, and around 70% of them would be eliminated. The elimination rate was very high. Most of the students from Xian County had already arrived in Zishan Prefecture. Most of the students from the other counties had already arrived. Outside Thane, a huge square, there were more than 100 black feather eagles and blue-winged eagles standing there. On the back of each black feather eagle sat a marquis. Yixing and the others were not the last to arrive. There were still a few students from the other counties who had not arrived. They had to wait a little longer. Xiaofan had recently killed 3 martial saints of the East Fu country and destroyed 200,000 soldiers. He was in the limelight. As soon as he appeared, most of the marquises were very polite to him and took the initiative to congratulate him. However, not all of the marquises were happy with Xiaofan. Xiaofan, you've been very impressive recently. Not far away, a voice that was neither feminine nor masculine was heard. It was very ear-piercing among the congratulatory voices. Yixing heard the voice and looked over. The person who spoke was an old man in his 50s. He was also sitting on a purple flame eagle. He was a peak martial saint and his cultivation was not weaker than Zishan Ho's. Just as Yi Xing was guessing the other party's identity, Zishan Ho said, "Ziyang Ho, no matter how impressive I am, I can't be more impressive than you. 3 beginner martial saints from the Ziyang Academy dare to be arrogant in my Purple Mountain Academy. My prestige is nothing." His words were also full of sarcasm. Yi Xing frowned. So this old man was the dean of the Ziyang College. Yi Xing looked at the cultivation of the students behind Marquis Ziyang. Out of the 10 of them, 5 of them were at the 9th level of the star-tempering realm while the other 5 were at the peak of the 8th level. As expected of one of the top 3 academies. In terms of cultivation, the 10 of them were much stronger than the 10 of them. Among the 10 students of the Purple Mountain Academy, only he and Ren Xiaowu were peak level 8 star-tempering realm while the rest were early or late level 8 star-tempering realm. In terms of cultivation, even the weakest of them was comparable to the strongest in the Purple Mountain Academy. Moreover, this was because Martial Saint Tian Ming was directly accepted as a disciple of the Falling Star sect. Otherwise, the other party would definitely have more level 9 star-tempering realm martial artists. When Yi Xing sized up the 10 students of the Ziyang Academy, he realized that their gazes were locked on him. They were very sharp and unfriendly. Especially the 2 level 9 martial artists, who revealed murderous intent. This made Yi Xing squint his eyes. It seemed that these students of the Ziyang Academy would not let him off easily. He had to be careful in the sect's test. Zishan Ho was more than 10 years older than Zishan Ho. When he was a disciple of the Zishan Ho had not yet entered the sect. In his eyes, Zishan Ho was just a baby. Even though Zishan Ho was nearing 40 years old and was a marquis of a region, and had recently become famous for killing the martial saint of the Dongfu country, Zishan Ho was still prejudiced against Zishan Ho for killing the 3 blue-winged eagles of the Ziyang Academy and causing the 3 martial saints of the Ziyang Academy to return in a sorry state. Zishan Ho sneered, "I'll let you be arrogant now. When the selection is over, let's see if you still have the face to be arrogant when no one from the Purple Mountain County gets selected." Zishan Ho retaliated, "Even if my Purple Mountain County gets 1, it's still better than your Purple Sun County getting 10. No matter how many mediocre people there are, they're still mediocre." Zishan Ho snorted angrily and said to the students behind him, "Remember this. If a student from the Purple Mountain County gets selected this time, I'll hold you responsible." Yi Xing squinted his eyes and made up his mind. This time, he must let Ziyang County eat a big duck egg. Zishan Ho, he's just a junior. Why are you bickering with him? It's just a moment of glory. He's just a cripple. How long can he be arrogant? At this moment, another ear-piercing voice was heard. It was also a peak martial saint, sitting on a purple flame eagle, who came to Zishan Ho's side. This person was obviously an outstanding marquis. He took out a wine jug and threw it to Zishan Ho, saying, "Come, have a taste of my Guantian County celestial fruit wine to relieve your anger." Jinghua County, Ziyang County, and Guantian County were the 3 largest counties in the Luoxing country. The middle schools of the counties were also the 3 strongest schools. The marquises of these 3 counties could only be conferred by peak martial saints. Just like the invincible marquis of the Dongfu country, they were not conferred by ordinary people. These 3 marquises had always been superior and did not put the other marquises in their eyes. Zishan Ho had been in the limelight recently and had completely overshadowed all the other marquises. Guantian was very dissatisfied with this. He often told people that Zishan Ho was able to kill the invincible marquis of the Dongfu country only with the help of the bow and arrow. This was because the bow in Zishan Ho's hand was an upper-grade spiritual weapon. Normally, only perfected persons would have upper-grade spiritual weapons. Without the upper-grade spiritual bow, Zishan Ho would not be a match for the invincible marquis of the Dongfu country. There were very few people who could kill the invincible marquis in the Luoxing country, but Guantian was one of them. Guan Tian's words seemed to be high and mighty, and he even reprimanded Xiaofan Ho as a villain. However, many people could see who was the villain. However, no one dared to say it out loud. As one of the 3 strongest marquises in the Luoxing country, ordinary marquises could not be compared to him. After Marquis Guan Tian mocked Xiaofan Ho, he didn't stop. He continued to speak to the students of Guan Tian Academy behind him. All of you, remember this. When we enter the 100 Illusions Matrix, don't let the students of trash schools fish in troubled waters. The Falling Star sect needs elites, and trash should be eliminated. Understand? Yes, Marquis. We will not let any trash students pass. The students of Guan Tian Academy said in unison. Guan Tian County. Yixing's gaze swept over the students behind Guan Tian. You guys also have to eat big duck eggs. Guan Tian and Ziyang Marquis quickly began to talk and laugh. Their words always had a high and mighty attitude as they constantly belittled other marquises. Naturally, there was no lack of open and veiled ridicule towards Xiaofan Ho. The other party did not openly attack Xiaofan Ho, and Xiaofan Ho was too lazy to pay attention to them. He only glanced at Yixing. Yixing nodded. Of course, he understood Xiaofan Ho's gaze. Even without Xiaofan Ho's instructions, he had already made his decision. He would let Ziyang County and Guan Tian County eat big duck eggs. With the passage of time, the people from the other remote counties had arrived. The 1,050 juniors had all gathered in the square. Each of them had received a card from the sect. The outer sect elder Huiyang Xian presided over the selection of disciples. He stood on the high platform at the back of the square and said loudly, "Juniors, the cards you just received are the 100 Illusions formation cards. Only those with the formation cards can enter the 100 Illusions formation. If anyone loses the card in the 100 Illusions formation, they will be immediately sent out of the 100 Illusions formation, which means they will be eliminated." Everyone kept the formation cards close to their bodies. There are a total of 1,050 of you, but our sect will only accept 300 disciples. 750 of you will be eliminated. When the number of people eliminated from the 100 Illusions formation reaches 750, the first round of selection will end. The remaining 300 people in the 100 Illusions formation will become our sect's new disciples. Furthermore, the 10 people who obtain the most formation tokens will become the top 10 of this selection and receive generous rewards. The second round of selection will be the competition between the top 10. The top 5, top 3, and first place will be determined. Different rankings will have different rewards. The first place will have the most generous reward. Everyone's eyes lit up. Most people wanted to rush into the top 10. A small number of experts wanted to fight for first place. Requesting monthly votes. There will be more updates tonight. Chapter 151. If one only wanted to be accepted as a disciple of then the best way after entering the 100 Illusions formation was to find a place to hide. As long as he did not lose his formation card, he could continue to stay in the 100 Illusion array until the number of people eliminated reached 750. Then, he would naturally become one of the 300 disciples accepted by the Falling Star sect. However, if one wanted to fight for the top 10, or even the top 5, top 3, or first place, then it was completely impossible to hide after entering the 100 Illusions formation. The only way was to take the initiative to attack and seize the formation plates of others. In short, if one wanted to be accepted as a disciple, all one had to do was to protect one's array card. If one wanted to enter the top 10, one had to snatch enough array cards. One had to focus on defense, while the other had to focus on attacking. Although the Purple Mountain Academy didn't have any students in the 9th level of the Star Tempering Realm, there were still many in the other academies. In fact, the Purple Mountain County didn't lack 9-star Destiny Realm juniors. Wang Feng wasn't the only one in the Martial Saint Destiny Realm. However, because Zishan Academy's disciples who entered the Falling Star sect always suffered setbacks and were assigned to the most unpromising units to do the heaviest work, after 2 rounds of the Falling Star sect's disciple selection, some of the big clans in Xiaofan County, if they had a 9-star fate or even a martial saint fate descendant, would be sent to a relative's family in another county at a very young age to avoid being branded as a member of Xiaofan County. It was precisely because of the loss of talent that the Purple Mountain Academy's recent 2 batches of students did not have high aptitudes. Compared to other academies, they were a grade lower. The reason why Wang Feng stayed in the Zishan County was because the Wang family did not know the relationship between Zishan Ho and the Starfall sect. They wanted to curry favor with Wang Ho, thinking that by not entering the Zishan Academy and becoming Zishan Ho's disciple, they would be able to break the curse of the Zishan Academy's students entering the Starfall sect. Thus, when the Wang clan found out that Wang Feng's Heaven's Mandate might surpass 9 stars, they recommended him to Zishan Ho and requested him to take him in as a disciple. Zishan Ho tested that Wang Feng's Heaven's Mandate was a 5-star orange fate and found that Wang Feng's talent was indeed extraordinary. He naturally accepted Wang Feng as his personal disciple and did his best to nurture Wang Feng. He even taught Wang Feng the Azure Cloud Eyes. However, Wang Feng truly wasn't suited to learn eye techniques, so Zishan Ho gave up. Afterwards, Zishan Ho took in Wang Feng as his adopted son. It was Wang Feng who had requested this from Zishan Ho under the wishes of his family elders. Zishan Ho had no children, and at that time, he only had Wang Feng as his personal disciple. Wang Feng was willing to acknowledge him as his father. This naturally made Zishan Ho very happy, and so he took Wang Feng in as his adopted son. As a result, Wang Feng, a genius with the Martial Saint's Mandate, chose to stay in the Zishan County. Therefore, although the Zishan Academy didn't have any 9-star Destiny students or 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students, it couldn't be compared to the other academies. Like the Zishan Academy, there weren't many academies that didn't have any 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students. Most of them had at least 1, 2, or even 3. As for the top 3 academies, each of them had more than 5. All in all, among the 1,050 students, there were more than 200 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students. Most of the others were at the peak of the 8th level or late stage of the 8th level. Those below late stage of the 8th level were extremely rare. Among the 200 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students, there were more than 30 late-stage 9th-level Star Tempering Realm students. Even late-stage 9th-level Star Tempering Realm martial artists didn't have a high chance of getting into the top 10. This showed how difficult it was. Basically, only late-stage 9th-level Star Tempering Realm martial artists had the confidence to get into the top 10. Those below late-stage 9th-level Star Tempering Realm martial artists were few and far between. Among the 8th-level Star Tempering Realm martial artists, Yixing was the only one who had the confidence. The 100 Illusion Formation has a radius of 100 miles. Intentional killing is strictly prohibited in the formation. If you lose, hand over the formation token and you'll be teleported out immediately. Go in. Whoever wants to get into the top 10, try your best to grab as many formation tokens as possible. The more formation tokens you have, the higher your chance of getting into the top 10. Gongyang Xian didn't beat around the bush. He quickly finished his speech and pointed behind him. There was a swirling ripple behind him. It was obviously the entrance to the 100 Illusion Formation. Following Gongyang Xian's gesture, all the students rushed to the high platform. They passed through the swirling ripple and disappeared into the 100 Illusion Formation. The 100 Illusion Formation had a radius of 100 miles. There were various terrains such as mountains, rivers, plains, and so on. The students who entered the formation were assigned to different areas. Yixing passed through the ripple vortex and appeared in the 100 Illusion Formation in an instant. He was at the edge of the plains. On his right was a mountainous area. On his left, there were 3 other students a few hundred meters away in different directions. One of the students immediately ran towards the mountainous area. If one wanted to hide, the mountainous area was clearly a good place. On the plains, others would be able to discover one from a distance. As for the other two students, they seemed to be from the same school. They quickly gathered together and knelt before Yixing. These two people were at the peak of the 8th level star tempering realm. Yixing was also at the peak of the 8th level star tempering realm, but he was alone. The two of them stopped 10 meters away from Yixing. One of them said, "Hand over the formation token and you can safely leave the 100 illusion formation." At the peak of the 8th level star tempering realm, unless one was a monstrous genius like Yixing, there was no hope of getting into the top 10. Therefore, as long as a student at the peak of the 8th level star tempering realm held onto their formation token and didn't get eliminated, they would be able to last until the end and win. Yixing really didn't know what these two people were thinking. They snatched his formation token, but they couldn't get into the top 10. There must be something wrong with their heads. Although he thought that there was something wrong with their heads, Yixing was still very happy about their arrival. He needed a large number of formation tokens to have any hope of getting into the top 10. In his eyes, these two people were obviously here to give him their formation tokens. Yixing touched his chin and said in the same tone, "Hand over the formation token and you can safely leave the 100 illusion formation. You're courting death. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit." The two of them shouted angrily at the same time. Without saying anything else, they instantly attacked. One of them jumped up and pounced on Yixing's chest. Both of his palms clapped together. The inner strength in his palms instantly penetrated through his body and turned into two palm prints, slapping towards Yixing. One of them shoveled on the ground and attacked Yixing's lower body. His right leg flashed with inner strength and dug out a 10-meter-long trench on the ground. These two people obviously worked together often. One on top and one on bottom, attacking at the same time. Martial artists of the same realm basically couldn't survive a single move from them. However, Yixing wasn't an ordinary peak level 8 martial artist. He moved his feet and used the Big Dipper step. The shoveling leg attacking Yixing's lower body suddenly missed. Yixing's foot stepped down, accurately stepping on the ankle of the shoveling leg. As for the two palm prints, Yixing didn't even use his inner strength. He just used his pure physical strength to casually slap them into pieces. Then, in just an instant, Yixing's two consecutive palms collided with the opponent's two palms. However, the sound was heard almost at the same time. Two screams sounded at the same time. The ankle that was stepped on was instantly dislocated. Moreover, Yixing was stepping on it, making it impossible for it to move. As for the student that collided with Yixing's two palms, he was instantly sent flying. His internal organs seemed to be in turmoil. His face was swollen red, and he felt extremely uncomfortable. He was about to vomit blood. Yixing stepped on the student under his foot and glanced at the student that was thrown more than 10 meters away. He said, "Are you going to take the initiative to hand over your array cards now? Or are you going to wait until I beat you until you can't take it anymore?" Both of their eyes were filled with fear. Usually, when the two of them teamed up, they could deal with martial artists of the same realm in one move. However, today, both of them were defeated by Yixing, a martial artist of the same realm, in one move. This was an outcome that they never expected. Even some level 9 star tempering realm martial artists might not be able to achieve such a powerful strength. How would the two of them dare to fight with Yixing? They quickly handed over their array cards. With a flash of light, the two of them were sent out of the 100 illusion formation. Yixing now had 3 array cards. In the 100 illusion formation, there were a total of 1,050 students who participated in the selection. Among them, 750 were eliminated. For every person that was eliminated, the remaining students in the 100 illusion formation would have 1 more array card. In other words, compared to the 300 students who were not eliminated, there would be 750 more array cards. If one wanted to enter the top 10, one would have to obtain at least 1/10 of the extra 750 array cards, which was 75 array cards. Together with the 1 card that one already had, it would be 76 array cards. As long as one could obtain 76 array cards, it would mean that one would be able to enter the top 10. Yixing put away the 2 formation cards and looked into the distance. His vision allowed him to see 10 miles away. This was just the ability of his super brain. There were too many people in the 100 Illusions formation, so Yixing did not plan to use his green eyes. Other than those who were hiding in his field of vision, Yixing knew every student's position as long as they were within his field of vision. Yixing immediately chose the direction with the most people. The reward for the first place was enough for him to break through to the 9th stage of the star-tempering realm. He was determined to get it. To get the first place, one had to enter the top 10. Therefore, Yixing had to obtain more array cards. He had to obtain at least 76 array cards. Although 75, 73, or even 70 array cards were enough for him to enter the top 10, Yixing had to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Therefore, they could only eliminate some people and snatch the array formation tokens from their hands. The direction Yixing chose wasn't based on the cultivation level of the other party, but on the number of people. Only by having a large number of people would he be able to obtain enough array formation cards. In Yixing's opinion, it didn't make much of a difference whether the other party was in the 8th or 9th stage of the star-tempering realm. Yixing had only walked a few hundred meters when he was surrounded again. This time, it was a 9th stage beginner and 3 8th stage peak cultivators. Although Yixing did not see any students from the Purple Mountain Academy nearby, not all students were like him and did not know anyone nearby. The 4 of them were from the same academy. Fortunately, they were not too far away from each other after entering the 100 Illusion formation. They quickly gathered together. There was strength in numbers. The 4 of them were obviously stronger when they joined forces to snatch other people's array cards. Chapter 152. Yixing crossed his arms in front of his chest, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, carrying a thought-provoking smile. Before the other party could speak, Yixing had already looked at the 4 of them with interest and said, "The 4 of you, are you here to give me the array token?" The 4 of them were stunned. Of the 4 of them, 1 was at the early stage of the 9th level, 3 were at the peak of the 8th level, and Yixing was only one person at the peak of the 8th level, yet he dared to say such a thing? Was there something wrong with his head? This thought flashed through the 4 of their minds. The early stage 9th level student said, "Idiot, hand over the array token and get out of the 100 Illusions array, or I'll teach you a lesson." Yixing stretched his right arm forward, his index finger pointing at the early stage 9th level student and hooking it a few times. "Come, let me see how you'll teach me a lesson." Being looked down upon, the early stage 9th level student was furious, his breathing quickened, and his face turned ashen. "This brat is too arrogant. Senior brother Fan Jian, break his dog legs. Senior brother Fan Jian, smash his mouth." The 3 peak 8th level students were also furious, and shouted angrily at the same time. Fan Jian was very angry, his eyes revealed a dangerous light, and walked towards Yixing. "Brat, you've angered me, are you going to support your stinky mouth, or do you want me to support your stinky mouth? 1 is enough, I'll do it, at least 10. Yixing's expression was normal. "Are you saying that only you can snatch my array token, but I can't snatch yours? I only said what you wanted to say to me in advance, do you have to be so angry?" Fan Jian continued to move forward, getting closer and closer to Yixing, his aura threatening. "Cut the crap, you don't have much time to choose." Yixing cracked a smile. What seemed like an innocent smile was actually a dangerous one. "Brother Fan Jian, right? Don't be so ruthless with your words. I originally only wanted your formation tablets. If you continue to act like this, we won't be able to play happily anymore. Perhaps what you say will be the final consequence that you will have to bear." Noisy. Fan Jian snorted coldly, and his palm suddenly emitted a bright light. That was the condensation of a dense inner strength, and its power was terrifying. Although it was not released, this palm was enough to split gold and stone. Fan Jian snorted coldly and rushed towards Yixing. His palm slapped towards Yixing's face. Pa! Before it even touched Yixing's face, an explosive sound could be heard as the palm moved. It was as if the air had been blown apart. It was clear how powerful the palm was. Even an 8-dan pinnacle Zhongshe realm cultivator would not be able to withstand the might of this palm strike. They would suffer severe injuries, possibly even fatal injuries. Fan Jian's ruthless attack caused Yixing's eyes to flicker coldly. In the face of Fan Jian's palm strike, Yixing did not dodge. Instead, he stretched out his left hand and grabbed the other party's palm. Yixing's palm was covered in a layer of golden light. There was no fluctuation of inner strength. Supreme-grade body refining technique, invincible golden body. The greater mastery of the invincible golden body was enough to defeat most of the 9-dan star tempering realm cultivators. Not to mention the early stage, he could even defeat the mid-stage. When the two palms collided, an explosive sound could be heard. The inner strength in Fan Jian's palm was dispersed and dimmed. However, the golden luster on Yixing's palm was still there. His strength was like a vice, and he caught Fan Jian's palm in an instant. At the same time, his other hand suddenly clenched into a palm and slapped towards Fan Jian's face. It was also covered in a golden luster. Fan Jian's hand was caught by Yixing. Even if he used all his strength, he could not pull his hand out. There was no way for him to dodge this palm strike. He could not even block it. Pa! The golden luster of the palm slapped Fan Jian's face. Fan Jian's face turned 90 degrees, and a bloody palm print appeared on his face. Broken teeth and blood spurted out. Fan Jian's eyes rolled back. He was almost knocked out by Yixing's slap. In the next instant, Yixing's hand shot out like lightning and grabbed the array formation token from the other party's body. Without the array card, Fan Jian was sent out of the 100 illusion formation in a flash of light. He was eliminated. The other 3 students who were at the pinnacle of the 8-dan star tempering realm were stunned. They did not expect Fan Jian, who was at the early stage of the 9-dan star tempering realm, to be as weak as a 3-year-old. Yixing put away Fan Jian's array card and looked at the other 3 students. What about the rest of you? Run! The 3 of them shouted at the same time. They turned around and ran, using their lightness skill to the maximum. Upper-grade lightness skill, traceless flying snow. Yixing moved and chased after them. His speed was more than twice as fast as the 3 of them. There were more than 2,000 martial arts in the Purple Mountain Academy library. Yixing had mastered them all. Even his upper-grade martial arts had reached the transformative realm. The traceless flying snow of the transformative realm was faster than the flying swan technique of the transformative realm. How fast was that? It was obvious that none of the 3 martial artists at the pinnacle of the 8-dan star tempering realm could escape. They did not even run far before they were caught by Yixing. The 3 of them panicked. They thought that Yixing would give them a slap each like Fan Jian. They hurriedly threw out their array cards and were sent out of the 100 illusion formation with bitter faces. Yixing kept the 3 array cards. He now had 7 cards in his hand. He was still far from the 76 array cards. He had to snatch more. Out of the 1,050 students who entered the 100 illusion formation, 750 of them would definitely be eliminated. Even if Yixing did not snatch the cards, there would still be 750 people who would be eliminated. It was just that the array cards would be snatched by others and the top 10 would be taken by others. Since that was the case, Yixing would definitely snatch the cards. Since they were going to be eliminated, it did not matter who got the cards. Moreover, if he got the cards, he would be able to get more array cards. Fan Jian and the other 3 had their array cards snatched away by Yixing. This was seen by many students in the distance. Now, these students regarded Yixing as a malefic star. They ran far away or hid. However, to Yixing, whose eyesight was far better than others, it was not easy to escape Yixing's pursuit. He used traceless flying snow and flew towards the direction where there were more people. Outside the 100 illusion formation, there were students being eliminated one after another. The lower the cultivation, the earlier they were eliminated. This was because once they entered the 100 illusion formation, there would be students with higher cultivation everywhere. It was normal for their array cards to be snatched away. Many students with lower cultivation were from Zishan Academy. Therefore, not long after the first round of selection began, there were already a few students from Zishan Academy who were eliminated. Marquis Ziyang, look, a trash academy is a trash academy. It hasn't been long since the selection began, and Zishan Academy has already eliminated 6 people. Among the eliminated students, 1/10 of them are from Zishan Academy, haha. Marquis Guantian laughed beside Marquis Ziyang. Marquis Ziyang was also full of smiles. There were almost 100 students eliminated, but Zishan Academy and Guantian Academy had not eliminated a single one. Both of them were very superior. Marquis Ziyang chuckled, this is just the beginning. It won't be long before Zishan Academy is completely eliminated. Not a single one will be left, hee. Both of their voices were very loud. The marquises nearby could hear them clearly. They could not help but look at Marquis Zishan's reaction. Marquis Zishan sat on the back of the purple flame eagle. The corner of his mouth was slightly raised, carrying a thought-provoking smile. No one could tell what he was thinking. About an hour had passed in the 100 illusions formation, and the number of formation cards in Yixing's hand had already reached 27. Basically, those who were targeted by him could not escape his tracking. Therefore, he should have obtained more formation cards and was at the front. If he maintained this speed, it would not be a problem for him to be in the top 10. Yixing's eyes constantly scanned the surroundings, looking for traces of other students. Suddenly, Yixing's expression changed. On a mountain peak a few miles away from him, 5 students suddenly walked out from the back of the mountain. There were 3 boys and 2 girls. A girl in the middle of the 9th level, a boy in the early 9th level, and 3 at the peak of the 8th level. With such a team configuration, Yixing could definitely defeat them all. What surprised him was not the strength of these 5 people, but the fact that there was an acquaintance among them. Chu Jingnan, whom he met when he obtained the silver star fruit, was now at the peak of the 8th level. Since they were acquaintances, Yixing naturally could not snatch their formation cards. Moreover, with their team's strength, they could definitely last until the end, rank in the top 300, and become disciples of the Falling Star sect. When Yixing saw Chu Jingnan and the other 4, they also saw him. However, Chu Jingnan and the other 4 did not have Yixing's eyesight. They only saw Yixing from afar, but did not see his appearance clearly. Seeing a lone student, Chu Jingnan and the other 4 naturally rushed over. Although Yixing did not intend to snatch their formation cards, he did not avoid them either. Hi. Brother Yixing. When Chu Jingnan saw Yixing's appearance clearly, his expression immediately turned to joy. Obviously, he did not expect to see an acquaintance. Yixing also waved at Chu Jingnan. Brother Chu, how have you been? Chu Jingnan soon arrived in front of Yixing. Chu Jingnan introduced, cousin, senior brother Yuan Bai, this is brother Yixing, whom I told you about. He has not become a martial Dao master yet, but he killed Jinxiang Temple, who was at the peak of the 8th level of the Ziyang College. The other 4 people all had shocked expressions on their faces. The middle stage 9th heaven female in the lead was obviously the leader of the 5 people. She walked out and sized Yixing up. Yixing remembered that Chu Jingnan had said that his cousin, Chu Jingyue, could defeat someone at the peak of the 7th level when she was at the early stage of the 7th level. The middle stage 9th level girl in front of him should be Chu Jingyue. If she was a genius who could fight above her level, then her strength was a little scary. One could not judge her from her appearance. Chu Jingyue sized up Yixing for a while and said, "Your archery skills are very good. I wonder how your strength is." Yixing also looked at Chu Jingyue carefully. She was wearing a tight black leather suit. She had a slender waist, full buttocks, and big breasts. Her devilish figure was perfectly highlighted, and she looked like an elegant cheetah. Coupled with her angelic face, Chu Jingyue was simply a stunner. Today's monthly votes are miserable. Brothers who have monthly votes, please support one. Chapter 153. Chu Jingyue frowned when she saw that Yixing didn't reply, but his eyes were wandering around her devilish body. Yixing immediately sensed her reaction. He retracted his gaze and said, "Not bad." Chu Jingyue said unhappily, "Jingnan said that you have the strength to fight above your level. I want to see if he's bragging. Yuan Bai, you go and test him. If you can't withstand 3 moves from Yuan Bai, don't blame me for snatching your formation card." The man in the early 9th rank walked up. Yuan Bai rubbed his fists and turned to look at Chu Jingnan at the same time. Chu Jingnan winked at Yixing. "Yixing, can you do it?" Although Yixing could fight above his level when he was in the 6th rank of the martial path, martial artists were limited in many ways. It didn't mean that one could fight above his level in the early stages and always be able to do so in the later stages. Yixing nodded. "No problem." Yuan Bai nodded at Yixing with a smile and said, "I'll make my move." As he spoke, Yuan Bai took a step forward and waved his right arm. He punched at Yixing like a flash of lightning. In an instant, Yuan Bai's entire arm was suffused with a red luster. The fist force rushed out and turned into a fire pattern that rushed forward in an instant. The void was burning and crackling, and the temperature suddenly rose. This internal force of the fire attribute was much stronger than ordinary internal force. Yuan Bai's strength was at the peak of the early 9th rank. In the face of his opponent's fire pattern fist force, Yixing moved his feet and his figure disappeared in an instant. Upper-level body movement technique, 4 directional steps. The 4 directional steps of the transformative stage allowed Yixing's speed to be unparalleled in a certain space. The 7-star steps of the transformative stage might not be able to dodge the attack of the fire pattern fist force, but the 4 directional steps of the transformative stage could easily dodge it. Huh! Seeing that Yixing had actually dodged his punch, Yuan Bai was surprised. Then, like a flash of lightning, he used his body movement technique and rushed toward Yixing, fire pattern consecutive punch. In the blink of an eye, Yuan Bai's fists moved at the same time, and in the blink of an eye, he threw out a dozen punches. However, Yixing's 4 directional steps was indeed extremely fast. His figure flashed, and the dozens of fist marks did not even touch the corner of his clothes. Fan ripple. Yuan Bai was a little annoyed that he couldn't even touch Yixing after 2 consecutive moves. He let out a loud shout and threw out 2 punches. A powerful fire attribute inner strength surged out in an instant, forming a fan-shaped area that rushed forward. At this moment, Yixing was about to land on the ground. Once he landed, he would definitely be hit by the fire-patterned fist force. Traceless snowflakes. Yixing's movement technique changed into Qing Gong. Both of his legs tapped on the air, and before he even touched the ground, his body was already much higher. The fiery fist energy rushed past his feet. Yixing did a backflip and landed lightly on the ground. He said, "Thank you for letting me win." After 3 moves, Yixing did not confront Yuan Bai head-on. With his Qing Gong body movement technique, he easily dodged all of the attacks. This made Yuan Bai a little stunned. With his cultivation level of level 9 star tempering realm, he could not even touch the corner of Yixing's clothes after 3 consecutive moves. Regardless of Yixing's strength, his Qing Gong body movement technique shocked Yuan Bai. Obviously, Yixing was much stronger than him. Brother Yi is indeed extraordinary. Yuan Bai cupped his hands at Yixing. Obviously, he acknowledged the latter's strength and retreated. Chu Jingnan's face was full of smiles. "I told you, Yixing is very strong. Cousin, he was even stronger than you when you were at a higher level. Yixing could tell that Chu Jingyue was not as happy as Chu Jingnan. Instead, she was a little displeased. After all, Yixing was an earthling. Although he had been in the Star Continent for almost a year, there were still some small differences between him and the locals. Her devilish figure was curvaceous, and it was perfectly outlined by the tight leather jacket. Yixing naturally took a few more glances at her. This was very normal on Earth. However, in the Star Continent, it was a little frivolous. Chu Jingyue labeled him as a pervert in her heart. Yixing could feel Chu Jingyue's displeasure. He said, "I won't disturb you anymore. Goodbye." Wait. Yixing was about to leave, but Chu Jingyue stopped him. Just now, you were dodging with your body movement technique and did not fight with Yuan Bai. Who knows if your strength is enough to fight someone at a higher level? Let me test you. Just take one hit from me. Chu Jingyue thought to herself, this kid is so young, but his eyes have already sized me up several times without any scruples. He must be a little pervert. Even if he is Jingnan's friend, I have to punish him. As soon as she finished speaking, Chu Jingyue's figure disappeared in a flash. In an instant, she appeared in front of Yixing and slapped him with her palm. Boom! Suddenly, the sound of thunder rang out. It was not thunder in the sky, but the muffled sound of thunder in Chu Jingyue's palm. She had performed an extremely powerful martial art, Thunder Palm. Since she intended to punish Yixing, Chu Jingyue naturally did not show too much mercy. Even an early-stage 9th-tier martial artist would not be able to withstand this palm. Chu Jingyue's attack was much faster than Yuan Bai's. Even the four-sided steps of the transformative stage could not avoid it. Yixing's body retreated backward. His palm glowed with a golden luster. In an instant, his palm collided with Chu Jingyue's. His body shot backward like an arrow leaving the bow. Chu Jingnan and the others were shocked. They thought that Yixing had been sent flying by Chu Jingyue's palm. How severe was his injury if he shot backward at such a fast speed? The next moment, Yixing's strange cry came from afar, "Ouch! Beauty! Your palm strength is as hot as your figure." While speaking, Yixing's body flashed past. In a few ups and downs, he had already run hundreds of meters away. He turned around a mountain and disappeared. Only then did everyone realize that Yixing was not injured at all. He had just retreated with the help of Chu Jingyue's palm strength. Chu Jingyue stood in place, her face cold. This little pervert dared to tease her. He was really reckless. However, Yixing's speed was too fast. She admitted that she could not catch up with him. She could only think bitterly, the next time I see him, I must teach him a lesson. Behind her, Chu Jingnan looked at his cousin being humiliated. He immediately suppressed a smile from the bottom of his heart. His expression was very strange. His cousin had an angelic face and a devilish figure. She could be said to be a stunner that could move thousands of men. However, she had a violent temper. She was focused on martial arts and had a firm will. She had no romantic feelings at all. She was just a tomboy. After knowing her for a long time, he realized how terrifying she was. Whether it was the boys who wanted to hit on her or the boys who were interested in her, they were all beaten up miserably by her. Yixing actually dared to flirt with this tigress, he was simply asking for trouble. Chu Jingnan could imagine that if his cousin met Yixing again, he would probably be taught a lesson. Afraid that Chu Jingyue would catch up with him, Yixing used traceless flying snow and ran all the way to distance himself from the other party. After running for more than 10 miles, Yixing saw that the other party did not catch up with him. Then, he stopped at a high mountain. Standing at the top of the mountain, Yixing looked into the distance and observed the surroundings. Suddenly, Yixing's face lit up with joy. A few miles away, Yixing met a team of 8 students from Crown Sky Academy. Among them, 3 were at LV9 star tempering realm. 2 were at the middle stage of LV9, 1 was at the early stage of LV9, and 5 were at the peak of LV8. Yixing grinned. In his eyes, the 8 of them turned into formation cards one after another. The 8 of them had at least 8 formation cards on them, but Yixing was sure that they had more than 8 formation cards. With the 8 of them together, they were a powerful force. They must have snatched many formation cards in their hands. Yixing was delighted. Their formation cards will soon be mine. He he. There are many experts from Crown Sky Academy and Ziyang Academy. They must have snatched a lot of formation cards. If I find them all and drive them out of the 100 illusion formation, it should be enough for the top 10. He had made up his mind. Next, he would clean up the 2 students from Crown Sky Academy and Ziyang Academy. Outside the 100 illusion formation. At this moment, another student from Purple Mountain Academy was sent out. It was Ren Xiaowu. He was at the peak of LV8, but he was also eliminated. In the 100 illusion formation, if a peak LV8 martial artist did not team up with a LV9 martial artist, it was easy for someone to snatch their formation card. Ren Xiaowu did not have the strength to fight against a LV9 martial artist, so it was normal for his formation card to be snatched. Sky Crown Marquis was full of smiles. Until now, no one from Crown Sky Academy had been eliminated. Seeing that another one from the Purple Mountain Academy had been eliminated, Sky Crown Marquis laughed happily. Purple Sun Marquis, look, another one from the Purple Mountain Academy has been eliminated. This is already the 9th one. Just one more and all of them will be eliminated. Marquis Ziyang stroked the beard on his chin. His face was also full of smiles and he was in a good mood. Trash academies, it is certain that they will all be eliminated. Not long after, that little brat will also be eliminated. Sky Crown Marquis nodded and glanced at Purple Sun Marquis. Purple Sun Marquis, how long do you think it will take for the last one from Purple Mountain Academy to be eliminated? Not far away, Purple Sun Marquis's expression was normal. As long as Yixing was not eliminated, the elimination of others would not affect his state of mind. In his opinion, Purple Mountain Academy's students would be discouraged if they entered the Falling Star sect. If they did not have potential, it would be difficult for them to make a name for themselves in the sect. His hope was only on Yixing. In his eyes, only Yixing could create miracles. Purple Sun Marquis also glanced at Purple Sun Marquis and said, at most 15 minutes. Marquis Guantian laughed. Marquis Ziyang, you think too highly of those trash students. How could they even need a quarter of an hour? I think at most a quarter of an hour, and those trash students will all be eliminated. Just as Sky Crown Marquis finished speaking, suddenly, a light flashed outside the 100 illusion formation. Another person was eliminated. Sky Crown Marquis's laughter stopped and the smile on his face froze. Immediately, the light outside the 100 illusion formation flashed continuously, and people were eliminated one after another. Sky Crown Marquis's expression became more and more unsightly. The students who were continuously eliminated were all students of Sky Crown Academy. Not only were the students at the peak of the 8th rank eliminated, but even those at the beginning and middle of the 9th rank were eliminated. In less than 10 breaths of time, a total of 8 people from Sky Crown Academy had been eliminated. All the Marquis' gazes turned towards Sky Crown Marquis. Sky Crown Marquis's face burned, and he roared at the 8 people. You good-for-nothings, how could you be eliminated? Today, I was called an idiot by the author who pushed my new book to the top of the monthly votes. The Arrow God was originally the top of the monthly votes, but he pushed it up and showed off everywhere. He didn't even allow me to refute and called me an idiot. He even said that he wanted to show off, so what could I do? Alright, I was really angry today. I delayed my writing, so I can't add more chapters. I can only update twice and apologize to my brothers. Tomorrow, I will adjust my state of mind and continue to explode. Furthermore, I will make a vow to my brothers that I will increase my explosiveness in the second half of the month. Calling me an idiot, yes, I am stupid. I am so stupid that I only know how to ask my brothers for votes, but I don't know how to spend money to buy votes. However, I will continue to be stupid. I have 3,000 subscribed brothers. If I go all out, I will definitely kill him and fight for first place. Brothers, if you have monthly votes, please vote. From tomorrow onwards, watch my performance. If I can't win, then I have lived in vain. Chapter 154. In Sky Crown Academy, the 8 students were stunned by Sky Crown Marquis's roar. Their expressions were both angry and ashamed. The mid-9th level student said submissively, It's Xiaofan Academy's Yixing. He stole our array card. Xiaofan Academy? Yixing? Everyone was stunned. It seemed that among the students of Xiaofan Academy, the highest cultivation was only at the peak of the 8th level. And Crown Sky Academy not only had 8 people, but 3 of them were 9th level martial artists. Furthermore, 2 of them were in the middle stage of the 9th level. With 8 people together, how could a peak 8th level martial artist snatch away all the array tokens? This was simply too unbelievable. What did you say? Sky Crown Marquis thought that he had misheard and asked again in disbelief. He had just mocked Xiaofan Academy for being a trash academy and that all the students would be eliminated. Just as he finished speaking, his Sky Crown Academy eliminated 8 people in one go. Furthermore, the 8 people who were eliminated were actually Yixing from Xiaofan Academy. If Xiaofan Academy was a trash academy, didn't that mean that Sky Crown Academy was even worse than trash academies? The mid-9th level student saw Sky Crown Marquis's anger and said fearfully, It's Yixing from Xiaofan Academy, he. Enough. This time, Sky Crown Marquis heard it clearly. Without waiting for the student to finish, he shouted angrily, A bunch of trash, scram. There was a burst of laughter from the side. Although the nobles present were not as high as Sky Crown Marquis and would not go against him, they still dared to laugh when faced with such a ridiculous situation. Sky Crown Marquis felt a burning sensation on his face, and his face turned as black as charcoal. Beside him, Purple Sun Marquis also had an ashen face. Yixing's strength was actually so strong. If the students of Sky Crown Academy were to suffer, how could his Purple Sun Academy be spared? Sky Crown Marquis looked at Sky Crown Marquis and so did Sky Crown Marquis. The 2 powerful nobles looked at each other, their eyes full of seriousness. For Yixing to be able to eliminate 8 people, his strength must have at least reached the level of a late-stage 9th level martial artist. Now, the 2 nobles could only hope that Yixing would quickly be eliminated by the students of the 2 academies who were at the peak of the 9th level. Otherwise, if the other students encountered him, it would definitely be a disaster. Inside the 100 illusion formation. Only 19 array formation cards. Although they have the advantage in numbers, they didn't manage to get that many. Yixing said unhappily as he tidied up the array formation cards that he had snatched from the 8 people. Even though he was alone, he had 27 array formation cards on him, and he had managed to snatch 26 of them. On the other hand, there were 8 of them, and they had only managed to snatch 11 of the 19 array formation cards. Compared to Yixing, their efficiency was much lower. 27 cards. Including these 19 cards, I have 46 cards. That's not a small number. There are still many students in the 2 academies. It should be enough if I snatch all of their cards. Yixing put away the 46 formation cards and looked into the distance, searching for the students of Crown Sky Academy and Purple Sun Academy. He looked into the distance and could see as far as 20 miles away. However, he did not find any students from the 2 academies. The space within the 100 illusions array was 100 miles wide. The target might not be within 20 miles of him. Furthermore, Yixing's vision was also obstructed by obstacles. The further away he was, the more he couldn't see due to the obstacles. The target might be within a radius of 20 miles from him, so he had to search carefully. With his eyesight, it was definitely not a difficult task to find the target. Yixing changed his position at lightning speed. Every few miles, he would look for the highest point and observe his surroundings from afar. He only targeted the students from Crown Sky Academy and Purple Sun Academy. He did not care about the other students. However, if someone did not know what was good for them and provoked him, he would naturally take action. For example, Yixing was blocked by 2 level 9 martial artists. One was in the early stage of level 9, and the other was in the middle stage of level 9. Yixing did not say a word to the 2 people who wanted him to hand over all the array formation cards on him. He rushed over. His body was glowing with a golden light. He did not even use his inner strength. He used his invincible golden body to crush the 2 of them. The early stage level 9 martial artist had 1 array formation card. The middle stage level 9 martial artist had 7 array formation cards. Obviously, the 2 of them snatched the array formation cards so that the middle stage level 9 martial artist could enter the top 10. He had a total of 54 array formation cards on him. If the number of array formation cards on the top of the rankings was higher than the average number, he would have the hope of entering the top 10 based on the number of array formation cards in his hand. Regardless of whether the array formation cards in his hand could enter the top 10, Yixing did not plan to stop. His goal was to let Crown Sky Academy and Purple Sun Academy eat a big duck egg and eliminate them all. Yixing continued forward. Not long after, Yixing was delighted. He found a group of students from Purple Sun Academy. There were only 5 of them. 2 were in the early stage of level 9, and 3 were in the peak of level 8. Yixing immediately dashed over with a bright smile. Not long after, the 5 of them also discovered Yixing. Someone pointed at him and shouted in surprise, "Look, it's the trash from Purple Mountain Academy. He's the murderer of Zhenxiang Temple. Destroy him." The 5 of them looked excited and also rushed toward Yixing. Even the 8 students from Crown Sky Academy, 2 of whom were in the middle stage level 9, had their array formation cards snatched by Yixing. The group from Purple Sun Academy only had 5 people. Moreover, the 2 level 9 martial artists were only in the early stage of level 9. The result was obvious. Yixing easily crushed the 5 of them with his physical body. He snatched their array formation cards with a few punches and kicks. What surprised Yixing was that they only had 5 array formation cards, 1 for each person. Did they not snatch others' array formation cards? Yixing did not understand. But he soon understood. Yixing climbed up a nearby peak and looked into the distance. He saw another group from Purple Sun Academy several miles away. This group only had 4 people. 2 were in the peak of level 8, 1 was in the middle stage of level 9, and 1 was in the late stage of level 9. With a late stage level 9 martial artist, this was definitely a heavyweight group. Yixing quickly realized that the group just now might have given their array formation cards to this group. Among the 10 students from Purple Sun Academy, 1 was in the peak of level 9, and 1 was in the late stage of level 9. Among the 1,050 people, there were only 4 in the peak of level 9. With their strength, there was no doubt that they would be in the top 10 if they snatched array formation cards. However, the late stage of level 9 was different. There were about 30 of them in the late stage of level 9. But other than the 3 in the peak of level 9, there were only a few spots in the top 10. The competition was very fierce. Therefore, the other students from Purple Sun Academy helped to snatch array formation cards, and then handed them to the late-stage level 9 students. This way, it would greatly increase the chances of the late-stage level 9 students entering the top 10. If that was really the case, then it meant that this late-stage level 9 student from Purple Sun Academy had quite a few array formation cards. Yixing naturally perked up and chased after them. Lu Jiaocai was very happy. Just now, the other group from Purple Sun Academy handed over 8 array formation cards to him. On the other hand, the team he led had snatched 29 array formation cards. Now, he had 38 array formation cards on him. If he snatched a few more array formation cards, his chances of entering the top 10 were very high. Lu Jiatsai was certain that the peak level 9 He Lieni would enter the top 10. If he also entered the top 10, then there would be 2 students from Purple Sun Academy in the top 10. Seeing that he was getting closer and closer to the top 10, Lu Jiatsai was naturally very happy. Senior apprentice brother Lu, there's someone in front. The middle stage level 9 Yoda Shan suddenly pointed forward. Lu Jiatsai's gaze followed Yoda Shan's direction. Indeed, a few hundred meters ahead, a person's back was facing them, blocking their path. Only peak level 8. Senior apprentice brother Lu, we can snatch another array formation card. Yoda Shan said excitedly. Let's go. Lu Jiatsai chuckled and waved his hand forward. I opened this road, I planted this tree. If you dare to come here, leave behind your array formation card. Yixing said, slowly turning around. A mere peak level 8 actually dared to ask them to leave behind their array formation cards. Lu Jiatsai and the other 4 were all enraged. When Yixing turned around and saw Yixing's face clearly, the 5 were both angry and amused. Yoda Shan said disdainfully, I was wondering who dared to block our path. So it's a trash student from a trash school like you. Lu Jiatsai's eyes spat out flames of fury. Zhenxiang Temple died at your hands? Yixing nodded. He wanted to die, so I fulfilled his wish. Lu Jiatsai snorted angrily. Deshan, don't worry about anything. Just kill him. Although he was furious, Lu Jiatsai clearly didn't think much of Yixing and didn't attack personally. Yoda Shan walked out, his expression cold. Kid, you should be the last remaining of Mount Zishan School. Die. As soon as he finished speaking, Yoda Shan's figure shot towards Yixing like an arrow, like a lion hunting a rabbit. Supreme level martial art, Furious Lion Fist. Yoda Shan punched out instantly, his powerful aura almost condensing into the shadow of a furious lion. Light bloomed from his fist, condensing into an extremely terrifying inner strength, forming a huge fist shadow. A mid-9th level 9 full-force attack was overwhelming and terrifying. To a peak level 8 martial artist, this was undoubtedly a fatal blow. However, Yixing's eyes didn't show the slightest bit of fear. His expression was still calm as he faced his opponent's fist and pointed out a finger. Yixing's palm instantly glowed with a golden light, and the inner strength condensed into a huge shadow of a finger. Supreme level martial art, Heavenly Annihilation Finger. Yoda Shan sneered. His cultivation was much higher than Yixing's. In terms of inner strength, he would definitely win. In terms of martial arts, he had mastered supreme level martial arts, and had reached the realm of great success. Yixing dared to use his finger to block his fist, he was simply courting death. However, he didn't know that in Yixing's eyes, he was also vulnerable. In terms of inner strength, Yixing's origin restoration force had reached the 6th level, which was comparable to a late-stage level 9. In terms of martial arts attainment, his Heavenly Annihilation Finger was at the level of perfection. In terms of physical strength, his invincible golden body was at the level of great success. No matter in which aspect, he could crush his opponent. When all 3 aspects were combined, it was even more crushing. Bang! With a loud explosion, Yoda Shan screamed. A bloody hole was almost poked in his fist, and the terrifying power instantly sent him flying. Thank you brothers for your support. Today, I will do my best to explode. At least 3 chapters, and strive for 4. Chapter 155. Lu Jiatsai and the rest were dumbfounded. They didn't know Yixing's strength, but a peak LV8 sent a mid-stage LV9 flying with 1 finger. This was too shocking. Yoda Shan felt his blood boiling, and his organs were twisted into a ball. He felt a sharp pain. Pfft! While flying, Xiaofan spat out a mouthful of blood. It was obvious that he was heavily injured. As long as one had an array token, they wouldn't be transported to the 100 illusion array. Hence, Yixing wasn't in a hurry to snatch their array tokens. They would throw them out crying later. Xiaofan flew for dozens of meters before crashing to the ground. He spat out another mouthful of blood. His hands were on the ground as he struggled, but he couldn't get up for a while. Senior brother Yoda. 2 students at the peak of level 8 hurriedly ran towards Xiaofan. As for Lu Jiaocai, his eyes were filled with shock and fear as he stared at Yixing. Even he could not defeat Xiaofan in one move. With a faint smile on his face, Yixing walked toward Lu Jiaocai step by step. Lu Jiaocai drew his sword and pointed it at Yixing with a grave expression. Yixing chuckled. "Aren't I a trash student from a trash school? What are you afraid of? Are you worse than trash?" Lu Jiaocai's face turned green. "You really think I'm afraid of you?" Yixing smiled disdainfully. "You're afraid of me. Bullsh *t. Lu Jiaocai's face turned red. "I'm afraid of you. Take this." Swoosh, Lu Jiaocai's sword moved like a curtain. The sword light shrouded Yixing's supreme grade martial art, Drizzle Sword Technique. This move, Drizzle Sword Technique, was really like rain. It was obvious that Lu Jiaocai's swordsmanship was extremely profound. The Drizzle Sword Technique was at least at the phenomenal stage. With such terrifying swordsmanship, Xiaofan took 3 strikes from Lu Jiaocai. However, while Xiaofan couldn't withstand 3 strikes from Yixing, Yixing couldn't even withstand a single finger from Xiaofan. Facing the sword light, Yixing remained calm. Yixing clenched his fingers into a fist and faced the sword light that filled the sky. Instead of advancing, he retreated and punched out with both fists. In an instant, there were countless fist shadows. High-grade martial art, Thousand Shadows Fist. Dang 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 dang, a series of explosions rang out. Each of Lu Jiaocai's sword strikes was repelled by Yixing's fists. Yixing's physical body was strong, and he was protected by a thick inner force. Even if the sword in Lu Jiaocai's hand was a top-grade mortal weapon, it could not hurt him at all. Drizzle Sword Art, the sword was like a drizzle, densely packed. This was a martial art that relied on speed and quantity to achieve victory. However, Yixing's Thousand Shadows fist was not any slower than his opponent's, and the number of moves was not any less than his opponent's. In fact, it was even better. After Yixing broke through the sword light that filled the sky, there were still a few fist shadows that continued to bombard Lu Jiaocai. Lu Jiaocai was shocked. He retreated and changed from offense to defense. He used the Drizzle Siege. The sword light became denser and surrounded him like a city wall, completely protecting his body. Yixing strode forward like an unstoppable flood. He changed his fist technique and turned the 1,000 punches into one punch. High-grade martial art, Tyrant Dragon Fist. Yixing's fist struck out, connecting with the power of heaven and earth. It was like an overbearing giant dragon rushing out. At this moment, Yixing's figure was nowhere to be seen in Lu Jiaocai's eyes. There was no fist either. There was only a giant dragon baring its fangs and brandishing its claws at him. Clang 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 clang, in the face of absolute power, any defense was futile. Lu Jiaocai's Drizzle Siege collapsed instantly. In the blink of an eye, the dense sword light shattered into nothingness. Only a long sword was left, blocking Yixing's fist. Clang! There was an explosion and the sword in Lu Jiaocai's hand was bent. He felt a terrifying force coming at him and his body flew backward involuntarily. Although his defense was much higher than Xiaofan's, his qi and blood were in turmoil. It was very uncomfortable. Take another punch from me. Yixing roared and used the 4 directional steps. His body flashed and he was almost faster than Lu Jiatsai's retreating speed. He threw another punch. It was still the tyrant dragon fist. Lu Jiatsai looked at the overbearing giant dragon charging at him. His expression turned to horror. He knew that he couldn't take this punch. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, Lu Jiatsai threw out all the formation cards he had. A white light enveloped him and he disappeared. He was very straightforward. He decisively threw away the formation cards and was eliminated from the 100 Illusions formation. Yixing's punch missed, but he was delighted to see a large number of formation cards floating in the air. He scanned them with his superbrain and found that there were 38 of them. In the blink of an eye, Yixing had all 38 formation cards in his hand. Including his 54 cards, Yixing had a total of 92 formation cards. Entering the top 10 was a given. Yixing looked at Yoda Shan and the other two not far away. They still had 3 formation cards on them. If he took them, he would have 95. Although he could guarantee a spot in the top 10 with 70 or so cards, Yixing didn't want to let go of any of the formation cards on Guantian and Purple Sun students. Seeing Yixing walking towards them step by step, Yoda Shan and the other two had a bitter look on their faces. They also threw out their formation cards. Even Lu Jiatsai was defeated by Yixing. The 3 of them knew that they couldn't escape from Yixing's hands. The sooner they handed over their formation cards, the less they would be beaten up. Outside the 100 Illusions formation, Marquis of Purple Sun's face was extremely gloomy. He and Marquis Guantian had been waiting for Yixing to be eliminated. However, after waiting for a long time, there was no sign of Yixing. In the end, 5 students from Purple Sun College were eliminated. That wasn't all. Not long after, another 4 students from Purple Sun College were eliminated. This time, even Lu Jiatsai, who was in the late 9th stage, was eliminated. In Marquis Ziyang's expectation, Lu Jiatsai was supposed to enter the top 10. However, he was eliminated and didn't even enter the top 300. 9 out of the 10 students from Purple Sun College had been eliminated. Only He Liani was left. Marquis Purple Sun was so angry that his face turned green. Who was it that eliminated you from the formation? Although Marquis Purple Sun had already guessed the result based on the 5 people eliminated previously, and there was a 99% chance that it was Yixing, he still wanted to hear another answer from Lu Jiatsai. Because, if it was Yixing who eliminated Lu Jiatsai and the rest, it meant that Yixing had the ability to fight with a peak 9th layer martial artist. This was definitely not what Marquis Purple Sun wanted to see. Marquis Guantian also raised his spirits and pricked up his ears. He also wanted to hear another answer. Unfortunately, the truth was already decided. Lu Jiatsai said with a face full of shame, It's Yixing. Thinking back to how they mocked Yixing as a trash student from a trash school, Lu Jiatsai and the rest were eliminated by Yixing, this made them feel ashamed. Marquis Purple Sun frowned and waved his sleeves gloomily at Lu Jiatsai and the rest. He was too lazy to ask any more. This little bastard. Marquis Guantian gritted his teeth and spat out a few words. Of course, he was very unhappy. Lu Jiatsai had been eliminated by Yixing, this meant that their late 9th layer student, He Hongguang, would also be in danger if he encountered Yixing. It had to be said that Marquis Guantian's premonition was very accurate. After Yixing obtained Lu Jiatsai and the rest, he walked for about 30 miles and found He Hongguang. He Hongguang was the same as Lu Jiatsai, completely disregarding Yixing, who was at the peak of 8th layer. His outcome was naturally the same as Lu Jiatsai's. In just 3 moves, he was already injured by Yixing. Before Yixing could strike viciously, he threw out his formation card and was eliminated from the 100 Illusion formation. Although He Hongguang did not have as many formation cards as Lu Jiatsai, he still had 29. This made Yixing's formation cards reach a total of 121. 121 formation cards. This was not just the top 10, it was the rhythm of taking first place. Of course, the final ranking was not based on the number of formation cards. Therefore, as long as one entered the top 10 in the first round, it was fine. First and 10th were the same. Ziyang Academy and Guantian Academy only have one peak 9th layer student left. Although I have enough formation cards, I will eliminate as many of you as I can. I will strive to eliminate all of you. Yixing thought to himself and continued to search for his target. At this time, Marquis Guantian was like Marquis Ziyang, so angry that his face turned green. He Hongguang was eliminated, and Guantian Academy also eliminated 9. Zishan Academy also eliminated 9. The three academies could be considered equal in this aspect. However, in the eyes of Marquis Guantian and Marquis Ziyang, Zishan Academy obviously could not be compared to Guantian and Ziyang Academies. In their eyes, Zishan Academy was completely eliminated, and their students were all accepted as disciples. This was also a normal result. Therefore, Marquis Guantian and Marquis Ziyang were incomparably angry at this change, and resentment accumulated in their hearts. On the other hand, Marquis Zishan had been calm and composed all along. Outsiders could see the bearing and spirit of the three at a glance. The number of eliminated people was increasing, and it was already close to 700 people. It would not be long before the first round of selection was completely over. Yixing could roughly guess that there was not much time left for the first round of selection, and martial artists in the 100 illusion formation were already very rare. He had to find the peak 9th layer students of Guantian and Ziyang academies as soon as possible. By now, most of the students had already gone into hiding. Only those who had the ambition to fight for the top 10 were still wandering around. As peak 9th layer students, they would not go to the extent of hiding. Therefore, Yixing still had the confidence to find them. In the distance, Yixing found another group of familiar people. Chu Jingyue, Chu Jingnan, and a total of 5 people. With Chu Jingyue, the violent woman with abnormal combat strength, their team was naturally unstoppable. They swept through everything in their way. Although Yixing would definitely meet Chu Jingyue in the top 10 matches of the second round of selection, Yixing did not want to meet her again in the 100 illusion formation. Otherwise, she would definitely flip out. Yixing saw the other party from afar, but the other party could not discover him. Yixing avoided them from afar. In the end, because he avoided Chu Jingyue and the others, he changed his direction. Not long after, Yixing saw another student of Ziyang Academy. Naturally, it was that peak 9th layer student, He Lieni. Kill you, then kill the other one, and it will be a success. Yixing's eyes lit up, and he dashed toward He Lieni. 7 votes away from breaking 100 votes this month. Can you break it? Chapter 156. When He Lieni saw Yixing walking towards him, he stopped in his tracks, a trace of surprise appearing in his eyes. He did not know that the other 9 students of Ziyang Academy had already been eliminated by Yixing. When Yixing approached, the surprise on He Lieni's face had already disappeared, leaving only a cold smile. You dare to come after seeing me, He Lieni. You are quite bold. Yixing was also extremely disdainful of He Lieni's arrogant expression. He was only at the peak of rank 9. Not to mention that he was not a martial saint, he was not even a half-step martial saint. It was as if He Lieni was an incredible expert. In Yixing's opinion, this was a kind of illness that needed to be treated. Yixing looked at He Lieni calmly. I came for you. For me? He Lieni's face revealed a slightly exaggerated disdainful smile. Should I say that you are bold? Or an idiot? Or, an idiot? 4 directional steps. Yixing's figure suddenly flashed and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of He Lieni. Slap Yixing's right hand clenched together and slapped towards He Lieni's face. To treat this kind of illness, one had to slap the face. Yixing's speed was beyond He Lieni's expectations. Moreover, it was a sudden attack. He Lieni realized that he could not avoid Yi Xing's slap, causing him to be greatly shocked. Yi Xing's slap was so fast that He Lieni did not have time to draw his sword and counterattack. He could only lean back, but he still could not avoid Yi Xing's slap. At the same time He Lieni leaned back, his right leg kicked up like lightning. If Yi Xing's slap landed, he would also be kicked in the chin. Yi Xing had been forced to stop by this internecine battle. However, Yi Xing seemed to have expected He Lieni's reaction. His other hand pressed down, hitting the leg that was kicked up. Slap! A loud and clear sound rang out. Four bright red fingerprints appeared on Qi Lieni's face. Although he leaned back a certain distance, half of his palm was still hit by Yi Xing's slap. At the same time, Yi Xing retreated like a ghost, leaving behind an afterimage. Clang! At this moment, He Lieni finally drew his sword and slashed out a dazzling white sword Qi. The sword Qi was so sharp that it instantly split the air in front of it into two halves. Moreover, it was like a dazzling white light that slashed into the distance. Unfortunately, the sword Qi only hit a string of afterimages of Yi Xing. Yi Xing's body had already dodged to the side, and the sword Qi missed. My hands hurt. My. Helian Yi's eyes turned red in an instant. His fury reached the heavens. He was actually slapped by a level 8 martial artist. This was simply outrageous. He Lieni had never been humiliated like this. I'm going to kill you. He Lieni roared word by word. While roaring, He Lieni had already rushed toward Yi Xing. His figure completely disappeared. Only a ball of dazzling sword Qi shot out. Extreme martial art, rainstorm sword technique. Drizzle sword technique and rainstorm sword technique. One was gentle and the other was violent. In terms of attack power, rainstorm sword technique was much fiercer than drizzle sword technique. Dark clouds cover. He Lieni jumped up. The sword Qi was like a curtain. Like a dark cloud covering the head, he attacked Yi Xing. He Lieni's rainstorm sword technique had already gone far in the great success realm. Its attainment far surpassed Lu Jiatsai's drizzle sword technique. Under the cover of this dark cloud, there was already a force of heaven and earth. That terrifying sword force multiplied the power of this move. Even Yi Xing could not be underestimated. Upper grade martial art, Thousand Shadows Fist. Yi Xing waved both of his arms and executed the Thousand Shadows Fist of the stage of perfection. Layers of fist shadows soared into the sky and blocked the dark cloud that covered the sky. Seeing that Yi Xing was actually able to block his sword move in a head-on battle, this made He Lieni even more surprised. Yi Xing's strong point was not only his fast movement technique. His strength was completely qualified to fight with him. This made He Lieni even more irritated. Thunder and lightning flash. He Lieni roared again. The rainstorm sword technique first had dark clouds, then lightning, and finally a rainstorm. This sword technique itself paid attention to the force of heaven and earth. The more it was executed, the stronger its power. As He Lieni's move changed, the blade of the sword slashed out like lightning. It brought along a series of thunderous sounds, shocking people's hearts. Every sword strike was accompanied by a clap of thunder and a bolt of lightning. The power was extremely terrifying. Origin Restoration Force. The origin restoration force in Yi Xing's body exploded and condensed into two palms. Two balls of dazzling light appeared in the center of his palms and slapped out towards the opponent's sword. Boom 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 boom, the sword and palm collided, producing a series of explosive sounds. The power was appalling and spread out for several miles. Within the radius of several miles, several students who were hiding heard the noise and came out from their hiding places to watch from afar. He Lieni was an influential figure among the students who participated in the selection this time. Among the 1,050 people, there were a total of 4 people who were at the peak of the 9th rank. Naturally, all the students recognized him. Seeing a martial artist of the 8th rank fighting against He Lieni, who was at the peak of the 9th rank, the spectators from afar were all dumbfounded. After the terrifying explosion, He Lieni's thunder and lightning flash was once again blocked by Yixing. It was still useless. 2 consecutive moves were not able to harm Yixing at all. Instead, he was the one who was slapped by Yixing at the beginning. The contrast between the two made He Lieni unable to restrain his anger. The 3rd move, Rainstorm Downpour, die for me. He Lieni roared loudly and his attacks became even fiercer. The first 2 moves, Dark Clouds Gathering and Thunder and Lightning Flash, were all moves that gathered momentum. The power was slightly stronger than the later moves. When it came to the 3rd move, Rainstorm Downpour, the momentum gathered by the first 2 moves finally erupted. He Lieni waved the sword in his hand and sword light poured out like a torrential rain. It was really like a torrential rain pouring down. The power was much stronger than the gentle drizzle sword technique by a large margin. At this moment, Yixing activated his super brain scanning mode. The opponent was getting stronger and stronger as the battle went on. Yixing was too lazy to drag on with the opponent. He wanted to end the battle as soon as possible. In an instant, Yixing found several flaws in He Lieni's sword moves. The Rainstorm sword technique did not have many moves, but it was extremely difficult to cultivate. Although He Lieni's attainments were very far from the realm of great success, it was still not the realm of perfection. The further the moves progressed, the more flaws there would be. Under the scanning of Yixing's super brain, none of the flaws could escape Yixing's eyes. Moreover, they would be magnified by a lot. Although there were flaws in the other party's moves, the accumulated momentum had exploded, and the flaws were covered by such a terrifying attack. It was impossible to easily break the other party's moves through these flaws. If the attack power was too weak, before you could break the opponent's flaws, you would already be defeated by the opponent's terrifying attacks. Therefore, although there were many flaws in He Lieni's sword moves, it was not something that an ordinary person could break. It just so happened that Yixing was not an ordinary person. Tyrant Flood Dragon transforming into dragon. Yixing roared and used the ultimate move of the Tyrant Flood Dragon Fist. The Tyrant Flood Dragon Fist in the realm of perfection did not need to accumulate momentum. Every punch had a boundless momentum that was connected to the heaven and earth. Yixing punched out with both of his fists. His arms were like flood dragons soaring into the sky as he carried out the ultimate leap. He wanted to transform into a true dragon with an extremely surging explosive force. In He Lieni's eyes, Yixing's 2 fists had turned into 2 giant flood dragons. They were incomparably overbearing. Suddenly, the giant flood dragon turned from 1 horn to 2 horns. The scales on its body were also instantly dazzling like a true dragon. The power of the fists multiplied. Boom! Yixing's Tyrant Flood Dragon Fist had reached its peak. The power of the fist covered the sky. It was powerful and terrifying. It just happened to attack the flaw in the opponent's sword move. The accumulated momentum of the rainstorm was directly dispersed by Yixing's fist power. There was no longer any rainstorm, thunder, lightning, or dark clouds. Under the Tyrant Flood Dragon Fist, the world was clear and bright. The sword move was broken and the sword power instantly turned into nothingness. However, Yixing's terrifying fist power continued forward without any decrease in power. The treasured sword in He Lieni's hand was instantly knocked aside by Yixing's fist. Bang! One fist knocked away the treasured sword, while the other landed unimpeded on He Lieni's chest. Puff! He Lieni immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His body instantly retreated backward and was sent flying by Yixing's fist. Under such a fist power, He Lieni's blood and qi were surging. It almost flowed in reverse. His internal organs were greatly shaken and he felt bursts of intense pain. He was already severely injured. In the distance, the spectating students were all dumbfounded. Which school's expert was this? He was only at the 8th stage of the star tempering realm, but he actually sent He Lieni flying while spitting blood. Could his combat strength be any more abnormal? The other students didn't know, but the few students who saw Yi Xing beat He Lieni to the point of spitting blood knew that a big dark horse would appear in the Falling Star sect's disciple recruitment this time. He Lieni was defeated, so the array card would definitely be taken away. Even a peak 9th stage martial artist was eliminated and couldn't enter the top 300. Who knew how shocked the people outside would be? Yi Xing walked step by step toward He Lieni. He seemed to be very slow, but he arrived in front of He Lieni in just 2 steps. Seeing that Yi Xing's fist was gathering inner strength and was about to launch an attack, He Lieni coughed out a mouthful of blood and threw out his array card at the same time. Since he was defeated, he couldn't keep his array card. He would just suffer a little more and be beaten up a little more. He might as well be a little more free and easy. After He Lieni lost his array card, his body was instantly enveloped by a white light and disappeared. Yi Xing kept all the array cards that He Lieni threw out. He had a lot of array cards on him, a total of 71. If he didn't meet Yi Xing, this guy would definitely enter the top 10. Yi Xing had 121 array cards on him. With the addition of these 71 cards, he had a total of 192 array cards. This number wasn't small at all. He had obtained about 1/5 of the total. In terms of the number of array cards, he was most likely first. However, Yi Xing still wanted to find a 9th Heaven Peak student from Sky Crown Academy and eliminate him as well, eliminating him from the competition. If that was the case, then the number of formation tokens on Yi Xing's body would really shock everyone. Unfortunately, just when he had this thought, a loud and clear voice suddenly sounded and resounded in the ears of all the students in the 100 illusion array. The 750 eliminated students have all been eliminated. The first round of selection is over. All the students in the array stop all activities. After the countdown of 3, they will all be teleported out of the array. 3, 2, 1. There's a 4th update tonight. Fight. Chapter 157. Outside the 100 Illusions array, He Lieni's face was full of humiliation, and he didn't dare to look at Marquis Xiang's face. Marquis Xiang was trembling with anger. The first round of selection had already eliminated 749 people, and it was about to end. But the last person to be eliminated was actually the only remaining member of the Xiang Academy, He Lieni. With a cultivation at the peak of the 9th level, he was actually eliminated at the last moment. This. Was there still justice in this? Who was it? Who eliminated you? Marquis Xiang roared in a low voice. Although he had some guesses in his heart, he absolutely didn't dare to believe that it was the truth. Marquis. Marquis, it's Yi Xing. He Lieni's voice was trembling, and his body was also trembling. He was afraid that Marquis Xiang would suddenly slap him to death. Boom, Marquis Xiang only felt a buzzing sound in his head. Although he had already expected it, when he heard He Lieni say it, Marquis Xiang still found it hard to accept. His chest felt as if it was heavily punched by someone. Even his breathing became stifled, and he was slightly unable to catch his breath. As one of the 3 supreme academies, Xiang Academy had never been completely wiped out in the Falling Star sect's disciple selection since its establishment. This was the first time. Previously, he even mocked Mount Zishan Academy for being completely wiped out, and even gave the order to completely wipe out Mount Zishan Academy. In the end, all the students of his Xiang Academy were completely wiped out by Yi Xing from Mount Zishan Academy. How could this not cause Marquis Xiang to tremble with anger? Even Marquis Guantian, who was at the side, was trembling with anger. 9 people from their Guantian Academy had also been eliminated by Yi Xing. Only Li Xiaoyuan, who was at the peak of the 9th level, was left. But the problem was that He Lieni was eliminated by Yi Xing. If Li Xiaoyuan were to encounter Yi Xing in the second round of the top 10 competition, would he be a match for him? This was where Marquis Guantian suffered the most. His Guantian Academy, one of the three supreme academies, had the student with the highest cultivation being defeated by the student of the trashiest academy. He couldn't afford to lose face. Now, he could understand Marquis Ziyang's feelings. Marquis Ziyang and Marquis Guantian were infuriated, while Zishanho, who was not far away, was as calm as ever. At this moment, outside the 100 Illusions formation, a large area of light flickered. The 300 people who had won the first round of the selection were collectively teleported out. The gazes of Marquis Ziyang and Marquis Guantian sharpened as they searched for Yixing very quickly. Their gazes landed on Yixing. Sensing the gazes of the two peak martial sages, Yixing turned his head back to look at them. A thought-provoking smile appeared on his face as if he was mocking them. This made Marquis Ziyang and Marquis Guanyang gnash their teeth in hatred. Soon, the disciples of the Falling Star sect took away the registration badges of the 300 selected students. From now on, these 300 people would no longer be students of the various academies, but outer disciples of the Falling Star sect. Gong Yongxian stood on the high platform and pressed his hands together, causing the crowd to fall silent. Congratulations to the 300 selected juniors. From now on, you will be outer disciples of the Falling Star sect. The Falling Star sect will be your new home, and your home for the rest of your life. The Falling Star sect will focus on nurturing you, so that you will be able to achieve great things. Most of the students felt their blood boiling after hearing this, especially those who had been selected. As for those who had been eliminated, their eyes were filled with envy and hope. Actually, Gong Yongxian's words were just official words. Although they sounded nice, they could not be taken seriously. It was true that the Falling Star sect would focus on nurturing outer disciples, but it was impossible for them to focus on nurturing them. For Theonly inner disciples who had become martial sages were the true backup. Outer disciples? Apart from disciples who had the potential to become martial sages, outer disciples were not important at all. They would not affect the strength and future of the Falling Star sect. As such, it was better for outer disciples with martial sages with heavenly destinies, as they would definitely become martial sages in the future and enter the inner disciples. As for outer disciples with ordinary destinies, the Falling Star sect could not afford to nurture them well. After entering, the most of the ordinary outer disciples would do odd jobs. The outer disciples of martial sages with heavenly destinies had already entered the Falling Star sect through the direct recruitment a few days ago. Right now, everyone here was of ordinary destinies. Even if they passed the selection and became an outer disciple, they would only have a chance to learn the spiritual martial inheritance. Wanting to be focused on nurturing them? Dream on. Of course, this did not stop the students from wanting to become outer disciples of the Falling Star sect. Learning the spiritual martial inheritance was the biggest reason. No matter how high one's talent was, one would need a martial technique to succeed. Even if one had martial sages with heavenly destinies, without a martial technique, they would not be able to become martial sages. Even geniuses with martial sages with heavenly destinies needed the spiritual martial inheritance. Naturally, ordinary martial sages with heavenly destinies needed it even more. Only by learning the spiritual martial inheritance would one have the hope of becoming martial sages. If one did not enter, they would not be able to become martial sages. Although there were martial sages with spiritual martial inheritances in the Jianghu, they could not compare to the spiritual martial inheritances of the Falling Star sect. Furthermore, the spiritual martial inheritances of the Wandering Star sect were not suitable for everyone. Therefore, they were destined to be limited. It would be good if they could take in a few disciples in their lifetime. They would not be able to spread their skills and form a big faction. If they could not form a big faction, they would not have the power to fight against the Falling Star sect. Without power, they would not be able to compete for resources. And resources were very important for cultivation. Therefore, the limitations of the Wandering Star sect were too great. Unless they were forced to or under special circumstances, no one would be willing to become a disciple of a Falling Star sect. Everyone wanted to become a disciple of a Falling Star sect. In order to become a martial sages, the younger generation of the Falling Star Kingdom racked their brains trying to enter the Falling Star sect. Unfortunately, the Falling Star sect was not willing to focus on nurturing ordinary martial sages. In addition, their resources were limited. Naturally, they could not accept everyone. Every time they accepted ordinary martial sages, they limited the number of ordinary martial sages to 300. However, since they had accepted them as disciples, even if they were not focused on nurturing them, they still had to give them a chance. Therefore, the Falling Star sect still took out some resources to reward the top 10. After entering Thief 1 entered the top 10 among all the outer disciples, the rewards would be even more generous. Those were resources that only the martial sages and martial sages could enjoy. However, ordinary martial sages could also fight for it as long as they had the ability. This was absolutely fair. For the top 10 disciples in this selection, the Falling Star sect will reward them handsomely. Next, I will announce the list of the top 10 disciples. Get ready for the ranking battle. Gong Yang Xian's voice continued to ring out. The scene instantly became lively. Who did not want the rewards of the Falling Star sect? Regardless of whether it was the disciples who had been selected or those who had been eliminated, most of them were whispering to each other and discussing animatedly. They were even more envious of the top 10 disciples. Gong Yang Xian held a list and announced loudly, 10th place, Zishui Academy, Zhang Shiwen, late 9th rank, 40 array cards. 9th place, Heavy Mountain Academy, Bao Zipping, late 9th rank, 41 array cards. 8th place, Nanhua Academy, Chao Xingchang, late 9th rank, 43 array cards. 7th place, Sichuan Academy, Song Yuanming, late 9th rank, 47 array cards. 6th place, Jiangyuan Academy, Jiang Yongxin, late 9th rank, 52 array cards. 5th place, Guangyuan Academy, by Maowen, late 9th rank, 55 array cards. 4th place, East Lake Academy, Chu Jingyue, mid-9th rank, 56 array cards. When the 5th to 10th place was announced, the crowd was silent. No one made a sound. However, when Gong Yang Xian announced that Chu Jingyue, who was in 4th place, was only at mid-9th rank, there was an immediate uproar. Not only did she obtain more array cards than all the late 9th rank disciples, but even by Maowen, who was at the peak of the was ranked behind her. This indeed surprised many people. However, this was only a ranking based on the number of array cards and not the final ranking. The final ranking was based on strength. In terms of strength, Chu Jingyue, who was in mid-9th rank, could also be ranked 4th. It would be shocking if she surpassed the peak of the Falling Star sect. Gong Yang Xian was not affected by the crowd's exclamations and continued to read the list. 3rd place, Crown Academy, Li Xiaoyuan, peak of the 71 array cards. 2nd place, Capital Academy, Wen Tongfang, peak of the 99 array cards. When Gong Yang Xian read to this point, before he even announced the 1st place, many people quivered. They suddenly thought of something shocking, causing all the hair on their bodies to stand on end. They were surprised to find that in the top 10, by Maowen, Li Xiaoyuan, and Wen Tongfang, who were at the peak of the had already come out. The other peak of the Falling Star sect was Helian Yi from Ziyang Academy, who had been eliminated in advance. In other words, the 1st place was not a peak of the Falling Star sect. Then who was it? Except for a few people who knew that it was Yixing, most people did not know and were shocked. Who on earth had obtained more array cards than the 3 peak of the Falling Star sect? Suddenly, the whole place quieted down. Everyone's eyes were focused on Gong Yang Xian, waiting for him to announce the 1st place. After Gong Yang Xian announced the 2nd place, he paused and looked surprised. Obviously, he was also surprised by the 1st place. After a few breaths, Gong Yang Xian continued, 1st place, Zishan Academy, Yixing, peak of the 192 array cards. After Gong Yang Xian announced, there was an uproar below. Even the marquises were shocked and could not help but talk about it. Among the 105 marquises present, there were not many who were close to Zishan Ho, Ziyang Ho, and Sky Crown Marquis. Most of them were far away, so they did not know Yixing. However, they knew Zishan Academy well. Although Zishan Ho had recently shown great strength and was very popular, Zishan Academy was the last academy. The strongest student in the academy was only at the Star Tempering Realm level 8. However, how could Yixing, who was only at the Star Tempering Realm level 8, be so powerful and take first place? Even if the first place was not included in the final result, 192 array cards were enough to shock everyone. In an instant, the name Yixing was deeply imprinted in everyone's heart. Chapter 158. Yixing rubbed his chin. He did not expect that his array formation card would be so much better than the second place. However, the first place was useless. The sex rewards were not distributed according to the number of array formation cards, but according to one's strength. Therefore, if he wanted to get the reward that would allow him to break through level 9 of the Star Tempering Realm quickly, he had to get the first place in the top 10 ranking matches. Yixing clenched his fists. He had to get the first place. He had been in the Star Continent for more than 9 months, which meant that he had less than 3 months left before he turned 17. If he wanted to become a martial saint before the age of 17, he only had 3 months left. Therefore, the earlier he broke through the 9th level of the Star Tempering Realm, the higher his chances of becoming a martial saint before the age of 17. The rewards for the top 10 were divided into different levels. The rewards for the top 10 were one level. The rewards for the top 4 were another level. The rewards for the top 3 were another level. Therefore, the rankings did not need to be clear. However, the rewards for the top 10, top 3, top 5, and top 5 would be given out. First was the battle for the top 5. According to the usual practice, the one with the higher cultivation would fight the one with the lower cultivation. Therefore, 3 peak LV9 cultivators and 2 late LV9 cultivators were divided into a group and matched with the other 5 randomly. Soon, Gong Yongxian announced the results. The first round, Wen Tongfang vs Chao Xingchang. The second round, Li Xiaoyuan vs Yixing. The third round, Bai Maowen vs Song Yuanming. The fourth round, Jiang Yongxin vs Zhang Shiwen. The fifth round, Bao Ziping vs Chu Jingyue. Yixing could not help but smile when he saw that his opponent was Li Xiaoyuan from the Sky Crown Academy. Li Xiaoyuan's face also showed a ruthless expression. Yixing's cultivation was merely at the peak LV8 LV9 and he was a student of the Purple Mountain Academy, which was a trashy academy. However, he had obtained so many array formation cards and was ranked first. This made Li Xiaoyuan very unhappy. Now that he was facing Yixing, he could defeat Yixing to vent his anger. As soon as Li Xiaoyuan left the 100 Illusions array, he was among the 300 candidates. He hadn't had the time to interact with the others from Crown Sky Academy, so he didn't know that Yixing's array tokens were mostly taken from the students of Purple Sun Academy and Crown Sky Academy. If he knew that He Lieni was eliminated by Yixing, he would definitely not have such thoughts after knowing that his opponent was Yixing. Sky Crown Marquis, a student of Sky Crown Academy, had a solemn expression when he found out that Li Xiaoyuan's opponent was Yixing. They naturally knew that Yixing was an extremely strong opponent. Otherwise, Ziyang Academy wouldn't have been completely annihilated in this selection. As for the students of Purple Mountain Academy, although other than Yixing, all 9 of them had been eliminated, Yixing had entered the top 10 with the highest number of array formation cards. This made them very excited. They all knew that the students of Ziyang Academy had been eliminated by Yixing, so they naturally looked forward to seeing Yixing defeat Cheng Xiaoyuan as well. Zishan Ho's expression was as usual. Even if he knew that Yixing had the highest number of array formation cards, there was no change in his expression. With his state of mind, even a little bit of joy and sadness would not show on his face. However, he was still very happy in his heart. After the 5 battles were arranged, the battles immediately began. The first battle was between Wen Tongfang and Chao Xingchang. The two of them quickly ended their battle. Wen Tongfang's strength was clearly higher than Chao Xingchang's by a level. In less than 10 moves, he defeated Chao Xingchang and was the first to enter the top 5. The second battle was between Li Xiaoyuan and Yi Xing. Everyone's spirit was raised. Their eyes were bright and full of expression as they focused on this battle. Yi Xing's cultivation was only at the peak of the 8th level, but he had the highest number of array formation cards. They all wanted to know what kind of strength Yi Xing had to be able to snatch so many array formation cards. Yi Xing's expression was calm. His aura was steady, like a deep abyss. As for Li Xiaoyuan, his expression was somewhat dignified. There was surprise in his eyes, as well as a trace of fear. Li Xiaoyuan had already received a transmission from Marquis Crown. Marquis Crown told him not to be careless. Ziyang Academy's He Lieni had been defeated by Yi Xing and eliminated from the 100 illusion formation. Li Xiaoyuan was very clear about He Lieni. He knew that the latter's strength was not below his. He Lieni was actually eliminated from the 100 illusion formation by Yi Xing. This greatly surprised Li Xiaoyuan and shocked him. After knowing how powerful Yi Xing was, Li Xiaoyuan naturally became afraid of Yi Xing Clang. As soon as he went on stage, Li Xiaoyuan unsheathed his treasured saber and faced Yi Xing as if he was facing a great enemy. Li Xiaoyuan's actions puzzled many people who were not clear about the situation. Did a martial artist at the peak of the 9th level need to be so nervous in front of a martial artist at the peak of the 8th level, as if he was facing a great enemy? When Gong Yang Xian announced the start of the battle, Li Xiaoyuan did not take the initiative to attack. Instead, he adopted a defensive saber stance and stared at Yi Xing with all his attention. Even Yi Xing was a little surprised by his opponent's degree of caution, not to mention those spectators who were not clear about the situation. They were all confused, thinking in their hearts, is this peak of the 8th level Yi Xing so scary? His opponent was defending with all his strength. Yi Xing naturally would not waste time with him, so he could only take the initiative to attack. High-grade martial art, Tyrant Dragon Fist. Yi Xing took a large step forward. In an instant, his aura underwent an earth-shattering change. From steadiness to sharpness, from sharpness to overbearingness, he punched towards Li Xiaoyuan. Boom! The power of the fist covered the sky. With the flash of the fist, there was a loud explosion. Li Xiaoyuan's expression suddenly changed. In his eyes, Yi Xing was infinitely magnified at this moment, turning into a roaring, overbearing dragon that rushed towards him. Even though Li Xiaoyuan's cultivation was at the peak of the 9th level, and his aura was surging and his willpower was firm, he could not help but be affected. Under Yi Xing's Tyrant Dragon Fist, he was defeated. Kill! Li Xiaoyuan shouted fiercely and stabilized his mind. He forced himself to wake up from the illusion of the oppressive aura and slashed out with his saber. Mountain-breaking saber technique. With a slash of the saber, it could split mountains and cut mountains. What he wanted was an indomitable spirit. Clang! The saber blade and Yi Xing's fist collided, and there was a loud explosion. The strength of the body refining technique was undoubtedly displayed at this moment. The treasured saber in Li Xiaoyuan's hand was a top-grade mortal weapon, but Yi Xing could use his flesh to collide head-on. Although inner strength was a big reason, a strong physical body was even more important. If it was a martial artist at the peak of the 9th level who had not cultivated a top-grade body refining technique to the large success stage, even if their inner strength was stronger than Yi Xing's, they would not dare to use their flesh to fight against a top-grade mortal weapon. In the midst of the explosion, Yi Xing's posture was like a mountain. On the other hand, the treasured saber in Li Xiaoyuan's hand rebounded and buzzed. His body leaned back, and he could not help but take a step back. The mountain-breaking saber technique focused on pressing forward with indomitable will. However, Li Xiaoyuan focused on defense. His defense was sufficient, but his offense was insufficient. Naturally, this saber strike could not block Yixing's Tyrant Flood Dragon Fist. The Tyrant Dragon Fist emphasized the word tyrant. It used great momentum and boldness to crush the opponent. Now that Li Xiaoyuan's body was retreating, his defense instantly showed signs of collapsing. Yixing naturally struck while the iron was hot. The Tyrant Dragon Fist blasted out again, and the overbearing fist rushed straight at Li Xiaoyuan. Li Xiaoyuan took a step back, and his momentum weakened. Under the pressure of Yixing's Tyrant Dragon Fist, it was impossible for him to gather his momentum again. He could only continue to weaken under the impact of the Tyrant Dragon Fist. Clang! The second time the saber and the fist collided, Yixing was as still as a mountain, while Li Xiaoyuan took 3 steps back. There was a clear difference between the power of the first saber and the first saber. This was the difference between saber moves. Li Xiaoyuan went from defense to retreat, and the power of the mountain-splitting saber technique was naturally greatly reduced. Therefore, although his strength was similar to He Lian's, Yixing did not use the super brain scan. He relied on his absolute strength to force Li Xiaoyuan back in 2 moves. The third punch. It was still the Tyrant Dragon Fist. Yixing punched out with both fists. The Tyrant Dragon soared into the sky and became a dragon in one leap. He used the ultimate move of the Tyrant Dragon Fist. As for Li Xiaoyuan, he was forced to retreat 2 moves. The saber move of the mountain-splitting saber technique had almost completely collapsed. How could he block Yixing's punches that had multiplied in strength? Bang! The treasured saber flew out of his hand. Li Xiaoyuan's body seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. He instantly retreated backward and was sent flying by Yixing. Li Xiaoyuan spat out a mouthful of blood in the air. He retreated dozens of meters before he fell to the ground. At this moment, the surroundings were silent. Everyone looked at Yixing in shock. They never expected that Yixing, who was at the peak of the 8th rank, would be able to injure Li Xiaoyuan, who was at the peak of the 9th rank, in just 3 moves. It was unbelievable. On the high platform, Gong Yongxian's voice sounded, "Yixing wins." Next round. There was a hint of surprise in Gong Yongxian's eyes. After all, it was too rare to see someone at the peak of the 8th rank defeat someone at the peak of the 9th rank. However, the surprise in his eyes disappeared in a flash. If one was not destined to be a martial saint, what was the use of having strong combat power? If one did not have the opportunity to break through to the Star Vortex realm, could one be stronger than a martial saint? Therefore, as long as Yixing did not become a martial saint, the sect would not really pay attention to him. The many nobles were the same. The surprise in their eyes quickly disappeared. The nobles were all high-level martial saints. Naturally, they did not think much of Yixing's combat power. Unless one day, Yixing could become a martial saint. Moreover, after becoming a martial saint, he could still maintain such a heaven-defying combat power. Only then would they look at him in a different light. Otherwise, if he was just an ordinary martial saint, he would not have much of a future. An ordinary martial saint was worlds apart from a noble. Li Xiaoyuan was eliminated. Yixing entered the top 5. The next battle was between Bai Maowen and Song Yuanming. This was another battle between someone at the peak of the 9th rank and someone at the late stage of the 9th rank. There were very few martial artists who could fight above their level. Most of them would not be able to defeat a martial artist whose cultivation was higher than theirs. There was no surprising change in the third battle. Bai Maowen won. Soon, it was the 4th battle. Jiang Yongxin vs. Zhang Shiwen. Both of them were at the late stage of the 9th rank. There was not much difference in their strength. After a decisive battle, Jiang Yongxin won and entered the top 5. The 5th battle was another battle of unequal cultivation. It was Bao Ziping vs. Chu Jingyue. As the only woman in the top 10, Chu Jingyue's combat power exceeded most people's expectations. Bao Ziping, who was at the late stage of the 9th rank, was defeated by her in just 3 moves. However, with Yi Xing's previous battle power, although Chu Jingyue's combat power exceeded everyone's expectations, it was not too surprising. The first battle ended. 5 people advanced to the next round: Wen Tongfang, Yi Xing, Bai Maowen, Jiang Yongxin, and Chu Jingyue. Author's note: I'm having trouble writing today. Sorry for the delay. The update is a bit late. Chapter 159. In the second round, 3 out of 5 would advance. 1 person would be given a bye while the other 4 would fight. The winner would advance. The bye was given to 2 9th-level peak martial artists, Wen Tongfang and Bai Maowen, to draw lots. In the end, Wen Tongfang was luckier and got the bye. As for the other 4, Bai Maowen was at the peak of 9th level and Yi Xing had defeated someone at the peak of 9th level before. Therefore, the sect missed out on their battles. The final result was that Bai Maowen would fight against Chu Jingyue and Yi Xing would fight against Jiang Yongxin. The focus of this round was the battle between Bai Maowen and Chu Jingyue. Chu Jingyue once again broke out with shocking combat power. Except for the strength of her inner force, which was a little inferior to Bai Maowen's, Chu Jingyue was superior to Bai Maowen in terms of physical strength and martial arts attainments. The two exchanged blows. In just 3 moves, Bai Maowen was hit in the chest by Chu Jingyue. Bai Maowen vomited blood and flew back. Chu Jingyue won and entered the top 3. Everyone was shocked. Yi Xing defeated Li Xiaoyuan in 3 moves and Chu Jingyue defeated Bai Maowen in 3 moves. In this disciple selection, there were 2 geniuses who could fight above their level. In this disciple selection, the martial artists at the peak of 9th level suffered a crushing defeat. Bai Maowen stopped in the top 5, Li Xiaoyuan stopped in the top 10, and He Lianyi was eliminated in the first round. Now, only Wen Tongfang was left among the martial artists at the peak of 9th level. Could he stop Yi Xing and Chu Jingyue? Everyone felt that there was little hope. After all, defeating someone at the peak of 9th level in 3 moves was terrifying. Unless Wen Tongfang's strength was much higher than the other 3, how could he be a match for Yi Xing and Chu Jingyue? In the next battle, Yi Xing easily defeated Jiang Yongxin and entered the top 3. The first battle was divided into 2 rounds. Wen Tongfang and Chu Jingyue would fight in the first round, and then the winner would fight in the second round with Yi Xing. The final winner would be first. Wen Tongfang's strength was very similar to Bai Maowen and Li Xiaoyuan. He was not much stronger, but he was still defeated by Chu Jingyue. He just took a few more moves. At this point, the 4 peak level 9 martial artists had all been eliminated. Yi Xing and Chu Jingyue would compete for first place. This was an outcome that no one had expected at the beginning. Chu Jingyue was dressed in a tight black leather suit. She had an angelic face and a devilish figure. She was very confident in her own strength. Ever since she stepped onto the path of martial arts, she had always been able to defeat people who were at a higher level than her. Therefore, she had long expected that she would fight her way into the battle for first place. However, she did not expect her opponent to be this strong. She looked at Yi Xing with a complicated expression. Chu Jingyue had met Yi Xing in the 100 illusion array. Although she knew that Yi Xing had the ability to fight above his level, she didn't treat Yi Xing as an opponent. In her opinion, Yi Xing might be comparable to a middle stage 9th heaven, but it was not very likely that he could reach the strength of a late stage 9th heaven. And to fight for first place, one would need to at least have the strength of a peak stage 9th heaven. Moreover, among the peak level 9 martial artists, one's strength had to be at the front. Chu Jingyue had expected her opponent to be one of the 4 peak level 9 martial artists. Who would have thought that it would be Yi Xing? Chu Jingyue's eyes were filled with surprise and a touch of coldness. She remembered very clearly that Yi Xing had taken liberties with her when he had borrowed the strength of her palm to retreat far away in the 100 illusion array. Furthermore, his eyes had been very crafty. He had often swept his gaze across her exquisite body and was very disobedient. I'll take this opportunity to teach him a lesson. Chu Jingyue thought. Yixing looked at Chu Jingyue with a natural expression and a faint smile on his face. First impressions were very important. In Chu Jingyue's eyes, Yixing's smile seemed to harbor ill intentions. It was like an evil smile. She had really wronged Yixing. Although Yixing instinctively looked at her a few more times, he had no thoughts about her in his heart, let alone showing an evil smile. Title Palm. When Gongyang Xian gave the order to start, Chu Jingyue immediately shouted. Her body soared into the air and she slapped Yixing with her palm. In the 100 illusion array, Chu Jingyue had only casually slapped with her palm. Now, she had used a superb martial arts technique. The power of her palm was incomparable to before. Chu Jingyue's tidal palm was very accomplished. It had already reached the consummation realm. Its momentum was very terrifying. It made people feel as if waves were surging toward them. No wonder the peak level 9 martial artists were no match for her. Her attainments in tidal palm were almost at the perfection realm. The strength of her palm was incredible. In the face of Chu Jingyue's terrifying palm, Yixing looked surprised but did not show the slightest fear. Instead of retreating, he moved forward and punched out. Upper grade martial arts, Tyrant Dragon Fist. The fist momentum of the Tyrant Dragon Fist was overbearing. Like most powerful offensive martial arts, it emphasized the indomitable spirit. The more one retreated, the weaker the fist momentum and the smaller the power. Yixing's Tyrant Dragon Fist was truly superb. When he punched out, he turned into an overbearing dragon in Chu Jingyue's eyes. He roared and rushed over. His fist momentum shook the sky and covered all directions. His powerful physical strength and vigorous inner force were fully unleashed at this moment. Yixing did not have the slightest contempt for Chu Jingyue. She could defeat a peak level 9 martial artist in a few moves. Her strength was definitely extraordinary. Naturally, he had to go all out. Otherwise, he would be defeated. Bang! Fist and palm collided. The vigorous inner force collided and bloomed with a bright light. At the same time, there was a loud explosion. In an instant, the terrifying shockwave formed a terrifying shockwave that spread out in all directions. The martial artists who were closer to the two felt a terrifying force rushing toward them. They could not help but take a few steps back. One could imagine how powerful the collision of their fists and palms was. In the explosion, both of them retreated at the same time. Chu Jingyue took 2 steps back while Yixing took 3 steps back. In terms of power, Chu Jingyue was slightly better. Both of their eyes were filled with shock at the same time. They were both surprised by the strength of the other party. Although they were surprised, the two of them didn't stop attacking at all. Raging waves hitting the shore. Origin Restoration Force. The two of them roared almost at the same time and unleashed their powerful ultimate techniques, charging toward each other. Raging waves hitting the shore was one of the killing moves of the tidal palm. When the palm came, the power was like a monstrous wave. It came violently with an unstoppable momentum. As for Yixing's Origin Restoration Force, it was improved by the superbrain, and he had cultivated it to the 6th stage. The strength of his inner force was unparalleled. In an instant, a blinding light of inner force gathered in his palm. Bang! The two palms clapped together and the two of them started a fierce confrontation again. The explosion sounded like a raging wave hitting the shore. The void shook and ripples appeared one after another. Yixing felt a terrifying force coming toward him. His body could not help but fall backward. He had to take a step back to maintain his center of gravity and ensure that he did not fall. In the blink of an eye, Yixing took 5 to 6 steps back. Chu Jingyue, on the other hand, only took 1 step back. Once again, a terrifying force erupted. Both of his palms attacked Yixing. In the second exchange, Yixing was obviously at a disadvantage. His opponent's raging waves hitting the shore was indeed very powerful. However, Chu Jingyue's attack at the moment was even more terrifying. It was the ultimate skill of the tidal palm, landslide and tsunami. When the two palms came at the same time, it was as if the mountains and rivers were collapsing and the waves were roaring. Wherever it passed, nothing could stop it. At this moment, Yixing instantly activated the super brain scanning mode. Chu Jingyue's every move and every movement of his power was scanned by the super brain. Chu Jingyue's tidal palm had been cultivated to the perfection realm and was close to the perfection realm. It was almost perfect. In terms of martial arts attainments, there were no flaws. However, the tidal palm was only an ultimate martial art. It was not even at the level of the spiritual martial arts. One could imagine that it was definitely not a perfect martial art. There were flaws in martial arts. No matter how much it was cultivated to the perfection realm, there would still be flaws. However, martial arts at the perfection realm basically had powerful and terrifying attacks. They would cover up the flaws and make it difficult for people to detect them. Or even if they did, it would be difficult to crack them. 3 parts restoration force. At this moment, Yixing displayed the ultimate skill of the restoration force. His attainments were at the 6th level of the restoration force. His inner force was extremely profound. It suddenly left his body and its power was terrifying. Even if he was facing Chu Jingyue's landslide and tsunami head-on, he would not be at a disadvantage. Moreover, Yixing's move had 3 groups of sharp inner force attacking Chu Jingyue's 3 martial arts flaws. Naturally, it broke the opponent's palm momentum in an instant. Boom! The sound of 3 internal energy explosions rang out almost at the same time. With a loud explosion, Chu Jingyue's offensive was destroyed as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Whoosh! Chu Jingyue's body was hit by the terrifying chi force. Her body flew backward for more than 10 meters before she landed on the ground. The terrifying impact made her take a few steps back before she could stabilize her body. The chi and blood in her body were surging. When she circulated her chi, the violent chi in her body rushed up, causing her chest to hurt. She almost vomited blood and staggered. Chu Jingyue covered her towering breasts. Her chest was full of air and she could not fight anymore. She looked at Yixing in disbelief. Obviously, she did not expect that she would be defeated after using landslide and tsunami. The young martial artists around were also surprised, especially Chu Jingnan, who was dumbfounded. He never thought that Yixing's strength would be so powerful that even his cousin had been defeated. As for the nobles present, they were not surprised. They had already been surprised by Yixing's strength. Even if he was stronger, it was not a big deal. Anyway, it was still difficult for them to take him seriously if he was not a martial sage. Gongyang Xian's voice came from the high platform. Yixing wins and ranks first. He is rewarded with 1 star gathering pill and 3 supreme grade star accumulation pills. Chu Jingyue and Wen Tongfang rank in the top 3. They are rewarded with 3 supreme grade star accumulation pills. Bai Maowen and Jiang Yongxin rank in the top 5. They are rewarded with 2 supreme grade star accumulation pills. Li Xiaoyuan, Chao Xingchang, Bao Ziping, Zhang Shiwen, and Song Yuanming rank in the top 10. They are rewarded with 1 supreme grade star accumulation pill. Soon, the rewards were distributed to everyone. Yixing was overjoyed. The star-gathering pill was infinitely close to the spiritual level. It would definitely help his cultivation break through to the 9th level of the star-tempering realm. Chapter 160. Yixing's wish was fulfilled and he became a disciple of the Falling Star sect. Moreover, he was the first in the selection and was rewarded with a star-gathering pill and 3 supreme grade star accumulating pills. Even though he was only an outer disciple who wasn't valued by Theet, was still his first step into the sect. Yixing believed that it wouldn't be long before he broke through to the star spiral realm and became an inner disciple who would be valued and nurtured by the sect. After being accepted as an outer disciple of the Yixing did not speak to Zishan Ho again. Under the lead of the outer disciple elder Yang Xian and other sect members, he entered the mountain peak where the outer disciple of the Falling Star sect was located. There were more than 1,000 disciples in the outer disciples of the Falling Star sect. They were divided into 3 mountain peaks, the first peak, second peak, and third peak. The Falling Star sect would recruit outer disciples every 3 years. If an outer disciple could break through to the star vortex realm, he would be promoted to an inner disciple. If he couldn't, he would remain an outer disciple. However, the sect obviously wouldn't allow an outer disciple to retire in the sect. If he couldn't become a martial saint within 9 years, he would have to pack his things and return home. Of course, this wasn't expelling him from the sect, it was just letting him go home. In name, he would still be a disciple of the Falling Star sect. The newly recruited disciples would live in the first peak. After 3 years, they would move to the second peak. After another 3 years, they would move to the third peak. After another 3 years, they would pack their things and return home. As a new disciple, Yixing naturally stayed at the first peak. The first peak had the most people, so there was a shortage of rooms. Martial saints and heavenly mandate disciples could stay alone in a room, but ordinary heavenly mandate disciples had to share a room with 2 people. The level of destiny was related to the treatment of the sect. It could be differentiated in many ways. Martial Saint Destiny disciples were like the gifted class students in the academy. Ordinary Destiny disciples were like the ordinary class students. Not only did they live in different places, but the resources and treatment they received were also twice as different. When everything was settled, it was already dusk. The day was almost over. With the star-gathering pill in hand, Yixing planned to break through to star-tempering stage 9 tonight. That way, he would be able to cultivate the origin restoration force to stage 7, which would greatly increase his strength. After consolidating his cultivation, it would be time for him to aim for the top 10 among the outer disciples. By doing so, he would be rewarded with a large amount of resources and could quickly improve his cultivation. By the time he became the number 1 outer disciple, his cultivation would basically be at the peak of the 9th level of the star-tempering realm. At that time, he would be able to obtain the spiritual martial arts inheritance of the sect and go to the depths of the Green Cloud Mountains to search for herbs to cultivate the invincible golden body to the complete realm. After that, he would have to look for opportunities to strive for the martial sage realm. Only when he became a martial sage could he be considered to have entered the door of martial arts. At that time, he would be able to become an inner disciple of the Falling Star sect and learn various spiritual level martial skills. Yixing had already made a plan for the next period of time. However, plans could not keep up with changes. The first night Yixing entered he was already restless. Trouble came knocking on his door. Duanjunpeng was a well-known figure among the thousands of outer disciples. Other than the new disciples who had just entered the sect, the rest of the outer disciples knew about him. This was because he was ranked in the top 10 of the outer disciples ranking. Although he was the last in the top 10, there were at least 200 half-step martial sages among the thousands of outer disciples. The fact that he could stand out among so many half-step martial sages and rank in the top 10 showed that his strength was indeed extraordinary. An ordinary half-step martial sage could not be compared to him. Moreover, Duanjunpeng was not only famous because he was ranked in the top 10, but also because he was vicious and merciless. He had been in the Falling Star sect for 3 years. In these 3 years, at least 7 ordinary Heaven's Mandate Realm outer disciples had died in his hands. Each of them was bullied by him until they could not stand it anymore and went to the life and death ring with him. In the end, they all died in his hands. Therefore, Duanjunpeng was given the nickname, Bloody Hands, because his hands were stained with blood. The outer disciples of the Falling Star sect could teach ordinary Heaven's Mandate outer disciples a lesson as long as they had a good reason. However, if an ordinary Heaven's Mandate outer disciple wanted to attack an outer disciple of the Martial Sage Mandate, they could only do so in the arena. There were two types of arenas, the duel arena and the life and death ring. The duel arena determined the victor. In the life and death ring, regardless of the outcome, only life and death were determined. It was evident that the sect valued the disciples of the martial sage mandate greatly. At Duan Jinpeng's residence. At this moment, the arrogant and domineering Duan Jinpeng was standing respectfully in front of a young man who was about his age. Duan Jinpeng cupped his fists and bowed as he said, "Senior brother Zhen, may I know what brings you to my humble abode?" Although he and Zhen Xiaosi had entered the Falling Star sect together 3 years ago, the difference in status between the two was like heaven and earth. Duan Jinpeng only had a 3-star orange fate and was still a half-step martial sage after 3 years in the sect. On the other hand, Zhen Xiaosi had an 8-star orange fate and became a martial sage in his first year in the sect. Now, he was a 3-star martial sage with a cultivation of Star Vortex Stage 3. Moreover, Zhen Xiaosi was ranked 10th among the inner disciples. In the eyes of the inner disciples, the number 1 outer disciple was also dog sh*t. Therefore, the difference between him and Zhen Xiaosi was like heaven and earth. Zhen Xiaosi was only 19 years old, 1 year younger than Duan Jinpeng. However, he looked very experienced. With his hands behind his back, he slowly walked a few steps and said, "Among the new outer disciples, there is one called Yixing from the Zishan county." Duan Jinpeng laughed. He knew that the disciples from the Zishan county, whether it was his batch, the previous batch, or the batch before that, had all been beaten up badly by the Falling Star sect. He had even killed a disciple from the Zishan county. He had heard that the Marquis from the Zishan county seemed to have a grudge with Elder Hua Tianshu. Any disciple from the Zishan county would be beaten up badly. Even the martial sage mandate was no exception. Unless, he swore to be Zishan Ho's enemy and become part of Elder Hua Tianshu's faction. For example, a few days ago, a martial saint's heavens will disciple from the Zishan county called Wang Feng was beaten up by him. That disciple was so scared that he immediately swore to sever all ties with Zishan Ho, to become his enemy and obey Elder Hua Tianshu's orders. Duan Jinpeng said, "Don't worry, senior brother Zhen. I promise I'll teach him a lesson just like the one from a few days ago." Zhen Xiaosi shook his head and said, "No, I don't want him to be obedient. I want him dead." Duan Jinpeng was surprised. It was rare for a new disciple to want someone dead. It seemed that Yixing had a personal grudge with Zhen Xiaosi. Although Duan Jinpeng was curious about why Zhen Xiaosi wanted to kill Yixing, he knew that it was best not to ask. He licked his lips and said excitedly, "I'm good at killing people, hee." In Yixing's residence. Yixing was adjusting his breath. He wanted to adjust his body to its best condition. He would take the star-gathering pill and break through to the 9th level of the celestial vortex realm in the middle of the night to avoid being disturbed. His junior martial brother Du Dong, who lived in the same room as him, was a man of few words. He was also meditating and cultivating. Yi Xing. Suddenly, a loud shout came from outside, which woke Yixing up from his meditation. Yixing frowned slightly. Elder Gong Yang said that today was the first day and there was nothing to do. The assignment would only start tomorrow. No one should have come to find him today, and he didn't have any friends in the Falling Star sect. With doubts, Yixing stood up and walked outside. Bang! Yixing had just taken 2 steps when he heard a loud bang and the door flew in his direction. Obviously, it was kicked away by someone. Yixing narrowed his eyes, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. This person didn't come with good intentions. Du Dong, on the other hand, was startled by the sudden kick of the door. Both he and Yixing turned to look at the door. It was a young man in his 20s. He wore a silver brocade robe and had a handsome face and an aquiline nose. It was Duan Jinpeng. However, Yixing was surprised to see someone he knew standing behind Duan Jinpeng. It was Wang Feng. Duan Jinpeng hooked his index finger at Yixing and said, "Kid, come out for a while. I have something to discuss with you. After speaking, Duan Jinpeng turned and left. TSK. Is there something wrong with this guy? Yixing looked at Duan Jinpeng's back in disdain. Although the other party was a half-step martial saint, Yixing didn't think much of him. However, since the other party had come looking for him, Yixing naturally had to find out what was going on. He walked out of the door. Senior brother Wang, what's going on? Yixing asked Wang Feng as he walked out of the door. Wang Feng sneered and walked away without saying anything. However, after taking a few steps, he turned back and said, "This is senior brother Duan Jinpeng, who is ranked 10th on the outer disciple ranking. You don't have anything to do with him. If senior brother Duan is looking for you, just come." Duan Jinpeng walked to an open area and stopped. Wang Feng ran to Duan Jinpeng's side and said, "Senior brother Duan, he's here." At this time, there were already quite a number of new disciples gathered around. Many people had heard the loud sound of the door being kicked open. The people who lived here were all ordinary Heaven's Mandate disciples. Of course, they recognized Yixing, who was ranked first. They all whispered to each other, wondering why senior brother Duan Jinpeng, who was ranked 10th on the outer disciple ranking, was looking for Yixing. "What's the matter, senior brother Duan?" Yixing asked as he walked over. Duan Jinpeng nodded at Wang Feng. Wang Feng said, "Yixing, I heard that you have a star-gathering pill?" Yixing frowned. The star-gathering pill was something that would help him break through to the 9th stage of the star-tempering realm. He wouldn't give it to anyone. He nodded. Wang Feng took out a small bag and threw it at Yixing's feet. "Senior brother Duan wants your star-gathering pill. Here's 100 gold taels as a reward." 100 gold taels couldn't even afford a mid-grade star-accumulating pill. How could he exchange it for a star-gathering pill that was 10 times more valuable than a top-grade one? This was clearly a robbery. Yixing's lips curled up. Senior brother Duan is already a half-martial saint. Why would he want a star-gathering pill? Wang Feng's eyes widened and he shouted, "Senior brother Duan says he wants it. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Today, I wasted a lot of time writing the chapter outline. The 3rd chapter was already at midnight. It was too late, so I couldn't finish the 4th chapter. However, I'll definitely publish the 4th chapter tomorrow. I have nothing to do tomorrow, so I'll write with all my might." Begging for monthly votes.